All right, we are live.
All right, y'all. Y'all know if it is Friday, y'all know it is time for all politics and local. America's number one
What?
political hip hop radio talk show. So y'all know that we're gonna have a real impactful show tonight. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Ed Riley. I'm gonna pass it off to one of my other co-hosts. He'll introduce himself and give you the rundown.
Hey, my name is Jonathan Alston, and we're gonna have a really good show tonight. We're really excited about the guests that we have, and it's gonna be a great show. At 6 p.m., we are interviewing, and she's already here, ready to go. Nkechi Taifa on the civil rights lawyer, famed civil rights lawyer, on Mutulu Shakur and his health. And a lot of us don't know we have political prisoners in the United States, but we have political prisoners in the United States, and we're honored to have our first guest break that down. On 6:30, we have Dr. Liza Chowdhury, and she is a expert on anti-violence programs, leads programs in Patterson, um, and is going to talk about state cuts to anti-violence programs in a time of rising violence. At 7 o'clock, I'm very excited. We're going to have an interview with my friend, who I'm honored to be friends with, and one of the is an understatement to say he's one of the most successful coaches, high school debate coaches of all time. His program was voted as one of the most successful of the 20th century, and if they had those votes right now, his program would be one of the most successful of the 21st as well. We're going to have a great time having a conversation with him about learning about his history, his past, and all the lessons we can take from that. I'm a debate coach. I'm going to be really into trying to learn as much as possible. At 8 p.m., we have Naseed Gifted on talking about Khemfest, Afrofuturism, and publishing Black art, and that's going to be fun as well. He is a leader within our community, and we're looking forward to that. And at 8:30, we have DJ Rhino in the state of hip hop with guest and Newark's ambassador to hip hop, Hakim Green, and the new young artist Goke. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So we've got a busy show. We've got all lined up. But Zaid, introduce our wonderful first guest, who's going to be giving us an education yet again.
We're coming in and firing on all cylinders. But before I introduce Nkechi, just a couple of words that I wanted to share about the rest of the show, that most of which you are responsible for, Jonathan, is that our host is very modest about his own standing as a debate teacher. Jonathan Austin himself is an emerging debate coach legend in his own right, and he's sharing an elder with us on the shoulders on which he stands. And so I wanted to just shout out Jonathan himself on that. And our guest at the end of the night, Naseed Gifted, is one of the few black science teachers that is fully in tune and in touch, and they're doing great work in both the classroom and his community around a very critical need in all of our schools. So I just wanted to lift up that particular dimension of those two guests before we jump in, right?
And and and,
We're
and
expecting,
also,
along with Nkechi, who's already on, we're also expecting an area professor, Karanja Kiata, young scholar who is not an armchair radical scholar. He actually gets in the community with his people around critical issues, and he's a young scholar who's also been very passionate about the plight of our freedom fighters, the plight of our political prisoners. The 6:30 segment, Dr. Chowdhury will be joined by Ray Chavis for the Newark Community Street Team. The Newark Community Street Team has been the lead uh, hospital violence intervention program in the state, and Dr. Chowdhury is in Patterson. He's done an exemplary job in a shorter period of time in Patterson, and we're outraged that those programs are being cut at a most critical time. But why we are here with Nkechi and Professor Karanja is that we have a very dire situation around one of our esteemed freedom fighters. Uh, Unfortunately, to many in our audience who are considerably younger, he is often treated as a footnote to the legacy of none other than Tupac Amaru Shakur. But he was anything but a footnote to Pac, and he's anything but a footnote to our struggle. Dr. Mutulu Shakur is a pioneer as a teenager in the launching of the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. And at the Battle of Bethel, when that declaration was made back in 1968, as a teenager on post, he physically covered and secured and saved the life of Herman and Ialua Ferguson, some of the elders of that movement back then. And he never took a step backwards since then. Dr. Mutulu Shakur is best known for that because he went to Africa as a part of the diplomacy of the Black Panther Party between party and the People's Republic of China, and picked up on the power and the potential of acupuncture as a healing modality, particularly concerned with a natural healing modality to help our people address the scourge of the drug wave that was put on us to take us off of the streets, out of the streets. When we were on the streets at an all-time high at the height of our struggle in the late 60s, right? And he's just been an important force in our movement for a long time. He has been incarcerated since the 1980s. He was eligible for parole in 2016. He has been denied parole 9 times. Even though having been a model prisoner, important role model inside the institution, done his time and done everything you're supposed to do, the state is still holding him in their clutches, knowing that he is very dangerously ill. So there is a fresh or refreshing campaign to secure a medically compassionate release for Dr. Mutulu Shakur. And Nkechi Taifa is somebody who actually goes back with him in a personal way as well as a legal way for quite some time. So we're honored to have Nkechi back. Nkechi's one of our lead reparations warriors, and she's usually on talking about reparations. Reparations is busy. We got to bring her back on some of that in a minute too. And like I said, Dr. Karanja, who should be on in a moment as well. So that's what we're going to talk about. Nkechi.
Greetings and salutations, my brother. Thank you so very much, All Politics for Local, for this feature on Dr. Mutulu Shakur and what's currently going on with him.
What's happening? Tell everybody who Dr. Mutulu Shakur is, and why is he so important to our movement, and why is it so urgent that we need to take up his struggle for his release right now.
Yeah, well, you laid it out perfectly. He's a father. He's a grandfather. He is a revolutionary. He is a political prisoner. He's been in prison for the past 36 years in U.S. federal prisons. But right now, today, he is battling for his very life. Okay, he didn't receive a life sentence. He didn't receive a death sentence. He received a sentence of 60 years. And as you stated, he has been eligible for parole for a long time. He's consistently been denied. Dr. Mutulu Shakur is, as you said, the stepfather of the great, our dear brother Tupac Shakur. He's the he was convicted with respect to being the mastermind behind the liberation of Assata Shakur from prison.
Oh, wow.
And you know, he is currently battling stage 4 bone marrow cancer caused by multiple myeloma, and the prison doctors have given him less than 6 months to live. Now, when I say less than 6 months, this was a couple of months ago. He was given less than 6 months. So we are appealing upon all of the powers that be that it is time to let our brother come home. I mean, consistently, white allies, our dear colleagues who are part of the freedom movement, who supported the Black liberation struggle, who were convicted along with Mutulu or in analogous conspiracies, are all out of prison, have all been released. His co-defendant, Marilyn Buck, who has been deemed to be the only white member of the Black Liberation Army or something along those lines, received a compassionate release in order to go home to die, which is basically what happened. The father of Chesa Boudin, the former DA in California, his father, who was one of those convicted of the conspiracy in those cases with Mutulu Shakur,
Talking about David Gilbert,
released
right?
To go home. Yeah, so there is no reason. Okay, see, racism goes across the board, whether we're in mainstream society or whether we're in the movement. We are treated differently. So even at that, with respect to in the struggle, okay, the powers that be are treating us differently. In 2013, he suffered from a stroke that required several months of recovery. In 2019, he experienced increasing pain, and that's how the advanced bone marrow cancer came as a result of medical neglect. As you said, he is a doctor of acupuncture. He knows how to do the proper treatments. He doesn't have the proper tools, that he needs, and even so, he's been able to treat and heal other people who are in a prison. But he is terminal right now, and we are demanding, asking, requesting that he be released to go home. We are talking to the highest levels. There have been letters. There was a letter that just went out today from civil rights and social justice organizations to the U.S. Parole Commission, to the U.S. Department of Justice, to the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, to the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, to the pardon attorney, because he should be granted clemency, if not compassionate release.
Malcolm X Commemoration Committee is a party to that letter for the record, right? I want everybody to lift that up. Karanja just joined us. What's going on, Young G? Good to see you, man. Right, Karanja, you one of the, you somebody who's, just by virtue of where you at in your age, some of us used to be young. Within the paradigm of what we call the heart of hip hop, you're still in that age range, and you participated along with Nkechi in a very powerful press conference and rally in DC just a minute ago, and in which over 100 clergy persons signed on to a letter calling for the medically compassionate release of Dr. Mutulu Shakur. What's your connect with Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and why is it so important for young folks to get involved in the plight for this freedom fighter's life and freedom?
Well, I'm a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, and we are supporting this work around Mutulu.
So slow it down, because everybody don't know what the Malcolm X grassroots movement, and I do, and Nkechi do, but all the rest of these other field Negroes, they don't know, so you got to tell them what it is.
The Malcolm X grassroots movement is the movement of new Africans that are committed to the human rights and self-determination of African people. We have a number of chapters within the United States. New York City has a chapter, Atlanta has a chapter, San Francisco has a chapter, and I'm missing some chapters, but those are just a few. And as
Detroit, DC.
Yeah. So as a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, I was asked by Sister Saliba if I could assist with what was going on in DC. And my father happens to be a preacher, and I talked to him about Mutulu, and he agreed to share a few words. And that's what I read when I was down in DC last Wednesday. But for me, as you stated earlier, I'm very much committed to bringing attention to political prisoners. We're so happy to see the recent release of Baba Sundiata Acoli, and we need to remember that Sundiata Acoli said that a political prisoner is an individual who has been jailed either for his beliefs or for his speech or for basically political ideas and concepts. And I'd argue that Mutulu is a political prisoner. He is no threat, no physical threat to anyone, but his ideas, what he has represented, and his ability to push back against the system makes him a threat and thus makes him a political prisoner. It's not that he's actually done anything, it's that his thoughts and ideas could do things. And the same thing goes with the host of other political prisoners that are locked up today.
Well, let me say this. I want to make this plain to everybody. I wasn't there on November 2nd, 79, when Assata was liberated, but I thank every single participant who participated in that armed action. We absolutely should, because that's a part of our military tradition. And anyone captured in that, is in fact a political prisoner by virtue of what they did, and somebody had to do that. Everybody can't be confined to the limitations of protest, no matter how important they are. But we have always had a long-standing armed military tradition of our own, and we need not be apologetic about that.
And there was no bloodshed. There was no bloodshed at all with respect to the liberation of Assata.
A militarily precise
exactly, you
action.
got it. And it was strategic also, because the reason why they eluded the capture, I mean, I'm just going to be quite plain, is because, you know, the government engages in racial profiling. They were looking for black men.
Yep.
Well, there was white folk driving to get away.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you know, that was strategic in and of itself, knowing the mentality of this country.
Wow.
I want to go back. I want to backtrack a little bit, though, because there's some names that both of you have mentioned that need to be lifted up in the appreciation of this. One is, of course, Assata. Assata was just observed her 75th birthday, and she is still in the safe and secure arms of revolutionary Cuba, and we thank Cuba for that, right? Sundiata was finally released after having done 49 years in prison. He had been eligible for release since the 1990s, right? You mentioned Marilyn Buck. Marilyn Buck was an incredible comrade and supporter of the movement, who literally put her life on the line in a way that you very few do in the matter of solidarity, and secured her freedom after enduring a long life sentence, right, on a medically compassionate release. So there are precedents. There is background for these kinds of things happening to elderly prisoners who have done their time, who pose no threat to society. And why is it that the state, meaning in this case both of the parole system and of the feds and the state of New York where he was convicted, why are they blocking his relief? And what is it that we must do now? And what are our particular points of action to build on this refreshed campaign to bring Mutulu home now? And both of y'all just jump in as you fit in.
So one of the things is that they say that he is still a threat to society and that he has the ability to influence people. Well, he is influencing people. He's influencing young black men in prison to be on the right road. Okay, he's educating them. You know, he is not talking about, you know, do this, do that, or the other, but he is helping to frame them into the people that they need to be. That's not a threat to society. All of the evidence shows that the older people are, the less likely that they are to engage in, you know, certain activities, etc. Well, Mutulu Shakur is 71 years old. In fact, he's part of that small group of people who have been in prison so long. They were in prison long before parole was eliminated in the federal system, which means he is still eligible for parole. But because of his status, he's not able to benefit from some of the policies that newer people into the system benefit from. That's why we have to go through these measures to try to get him released on compassionate release, because his question is a gray area as to whether that category of prisoner that Mutulu is can even benefit from that part of what was called the First Step Act. So what do we need to do? We need to be vigilant. We need to raise his name. We need to tell about the category that he's in. We need to educate people that, again, there is no threat whatsoever to public safety.
And people don't even know.
He's not a footnote in history.
And people don't even know that there are political prisoners in the United States, or that what even happened with Assata Shakur. They don't know about COINTELPRO. They don't know about all the things that give the context to why why the people she was with were targeted, right, by the United States government. And that's documented. And they were targeted before that. Why people continue to be targeted. Why, like, all of the stuff that you're talking about, a lot of people just don't know that this is stuff that's, if you like, is taught in some colleges. It's taught when people like look up COINTELPRO. But it really is not what most people know about even though it really is just American history.
What's interesting is that just a few years ago, the FBI created their Black Identity Extremist label that was going to Black folks who were committed to racial justice and focusing on police brutality and things of that nature. And when you begin to look at this idea of a Black identity extremist, it's parallel with what was going on within COINTELPRO. So it's about people understanding the history of the legal system and how it works against people of African descent who are trying to work towards their freedom and liberation.
Go ahead, finish your thoughts. Mm-hmm.
Well, when you ask what can be done, there's a link that I would hope that folks can have access to, and it goes through what the Malcolm X grassroots movement is trying to do to bring attention to the case of Mutulu Shakur. The link is freetheland.mxgm.org/free-Mutulu-now.
Say it again one more time, a little slower.
All right. Free the land, one word, freetheland, mxgm.org/free-Mutulu-now.
So, Professor and everyone talked about COINTELPRO. A lot of people don't know that one of the reasons why Dr. Mutulu Shakur was targeted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation was because he was investigating the FBI under COINTELPRO. He started the National Task Force on COINTELPRO litigation research, something along those lines. I've got the
back in the late 70s.
Yeah, right. To bring to the public a lot of these instances that people are only learning about now because they saw the Hollywood movie Judas and the Black Messiah. But it goes far, far, far beyond Judas and the Black Messiah. And as I see from Todd Stephen Burroughs, Mutulu Shakur is not the only political prisoner. We have Mumia Abu-Jamal, which he recently wrote a book about. That is a political prisoner. We have Veronza Bowers, who is a political prisoner. We have Imam Jamil Al-Amin, who is a political prisoner, and the list goes.
All of them who are facing medical crises, all of them who have done their time, all of them who are elderly prisoners, all of them deserve the same call to be released. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And then, of course, there are those in exile, such as Sister Asada and Brother Pete O'Neill. In fact, his wife is
just turned 81, right?
Say that again?
Yes. He just turned 81.
He did. He just had a birthday. Absolutely. in Tanzania, has been in exile all that time, has a phenomenal community center out there. I've been there twice. And as I said, his wife is on a tour in the United States right now, and we're hosting her in DC, showing his film, A Panther in Africa. So this needs to be part of the history books. We are history in the making. And this history, the history of resistance, is continuously swept under the rug, and we must not allow that to happen. One more thing. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Come on.
Of our dear brother, attorney, Chokwe Lumumba, who was my legal mentor. Are
you talking about the mayor that with the African name in Mississippi? Right, and then his boy that mayor now.
Yeah,
that who you talking about?
Yeah,
who was that? Yeah, tell us about that, because that blew a whole lot of our minds. We didn't know what that was.
Yeah, well, Brother Chokwe represented Mutulu during his trial. I worked with him on what we call the POW brief, prisoner of war brief. I'm newly out of law school at the time, and we fashioned the legal argument that I feel was so powerful that the judge, first time in history, required the Department of State, the Department of Justice, the Department of the Army, and all like that to respond to our POW brief. Of course, the response was that it was frivolous, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that the judge required a response, and I didn't even know about this response, since this was before internet and all like that. I just happened to be Googling one time, and up it came USB Buck and Shakur, the POW brief. So that's online if anybody wants to read that.
You get real personal, all this is personal to all of us, but Chokwe passed away in office several years ago in the late Ahmed Obafemi, two pioneers of the modern expression of the new African independence movement, were both very personal to me. And I was a young head just coming around in New York around the time that Mutulu was captured and was tasked with doing that first book party for Asada right here in Newark. So those you calling out names that are really doing something else. And Chokwe Lumumba, Chokwe and Charles Lumumba, right? Ed, and we remind everybody, is the co-convener of the 50th anniversary of the Gary Convention, in addition to being the current mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. And stay tuned to All Politics Are Local, because All Politics Are Local is a co-sponsor for that convention, and we're going to be doing a lot to lift that up as we get closer to the emergence of that anniversary convention. So you lifted up a whole lot there, Nkechi. Karanja, now we're talking about young heads. Now, how do young heads appreciate what we're talking about right now? Right, we're talking about some stuff, right? But we're talking about some stuff, but it's also right in the wheelhouse. Because you hit it when you started talking about this recent expression of this new list of Black activists, because of the profound expression of protest that came out of George Floyd. Why don't you lift that up a little more so young folks can really get at why this is important to make this move now?
Well, the FBI created this category known as a Black identity extremist. And one of the main targets was a brother by the name of Hakim Balagoon. If you Google him, you go on YouTube, you'll find enough information about him and what exactly happened with his case. He was eventually cleared of whatever charges, but we have to be mindful that our actions can be used as a way of targeting folks. And that's what happened with Black identity extremists. The idea is that anyone who is vocal and resistant around issues of race, justice, police violence can become a threat. I think of the current political prisoner, Joy Powell, who's locked up, out of Rochester, who was doing the same thing. But this was prior to the Black identity extremists. But Hakim Balagoon is the most recent person. And for young organizers, you should be mindful of your actions. Be mindful of what you do. Be mindful, especially, the foolishness that goes on social media, the things that people say that they're going to do, that they're not going to do, and all this. All of that can be used against folks. And it has been in the case of attempted to be used against folks in the case of Hakim Balagoon. And we just need to be mindful of our actions, because this government is afraid of our ability to be organized and provide a strong resistance against our oppression. And they will do anything to cripple our efforts.
And even with what happened, you're saying.
Go ahead,
right?
Jonathan.
No, you can go.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
No, you can go, because I know we're wrapping things up, and I want to make sure that you get your question.
He actually gave me a good segue, because this is All Politics Are Local, and the local expression of the Hakim Balagoon's case is what happened with one of my former soldiers, and he's still in the new Black Panther Party, and that's Sharif Amenhotep. Sharif Amenhotep almost was facing a life bid on a bogus weapons possession charge. The same circumstance, the exact same circumstance. We had to fight like hell to get him out of the clutches. And Sharif is out front of our anti-violence efforts here in Newark in a way that is exemplary. We're incredibly proud of that young brother. The point I wanted to make is this: is that and that's another story. But to Karanja's point and to young folks' point, even though we have this cloud of surveillance and over our heads, we still must go forward. We still must go forward with our best work, our best organizing efforts, our best commitment to principle and discipline. And that's what's going to protect us in the end, is our commitment to do this work in a disciplined and principled way, right? Because in the end, we're going to win, right? We won Maroon's release. We won Maryland Buck's release. We won Sekou Odinga's release. We won Sundiata's release. And then we want to win. We ultimately want to win our freedom from our oppression. Like our ancestors who faced a more enormous cloud than COINTELPRO, when that was chattel slavery over several centuries, right? They never gave up, and neither should we. So I want to thank our guests. Last words on how to follow up on Mutulu's case. Karanja, give the link again, and we need to ask y'all one question before you go.
All right,
I'll let Jonathan do that.
The link is freetheland.org/free-Mutulu.
All right, so can you slow down and just do that one more time, and we'll post it, because I posted it in the chat. Yeah, no one's gonna remember that. So can you post it in the chat and just? I
posted it in the private chat already.
Oh, you posted it in the chat. All right,
private chat. Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it in the public chat.
Okay.
That's the Black Power, Black Laureate. No, that's the Free the Land. All right, cool. I'll post it now.
Thank you.
All right, and while I'm posting that, you can ask the last question.
Oh, okay. Well, Karanja, I think this is your first time on the show. Nkechi, you've been on already, so you kind of know what we get ready to ask, right? Who are you listening to now in the land of hip hop, or who are your favorite artists that set you flowing in the land of hip hop? Karanja, you go first, because this is your first time on the show.
Well, I'm in the land of hip hop. Well, I'll tell you this. I listen to a lot of reggae, and Kabaka Pyramid has been influenced by hip hop, without a doubt. And he says that in one of his interviews. So I'm going to say that I'm listening to Kabaka Pyramid. And if I'm not listening to Kabaka Pyramid, I'm usually listening to some wise intelligent who will keep me grounded and focused.
I have not heard of Kabaka Pyramid, and I'm going to check that brother out, because reggae is always about the resistance. So we say right on to that. All right, and all of that. And Nkechi, I know some of us are on the older side of this whole thing.
I always go back to the past. Since we got the theme here dealing with Mutulu, and I'm going to go with Carmen's Asada.
Yes. Forgotten gem by Carmen. Right on. That's right. Okay, y'all. Powerful segment. We'll be in touch. We'll be lifting it up on the regular. Right, y'all know what to do. Straight ahead, forward is the motion. Ain't nobody backing up here. We don't give up until we win. Free Mutulu Shakur, right, and on to the next segment. Thank you both.
But you know what? I got one question for them before they leave, though.
Oh, hurry up, go, because
wow, what you doing now, man? You just jumping on
it, man.
But I'm not here. We don't have anyone to blame.
He found the leave button before I found the leave button.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just one quick question. What can we do at All Politics Are Local to help turn up that volume, to further put pressure on this government to release Baba Shakur?
Thank you so very much for that. And you're already doing it by inviting us on to continuously sound the alarm. Invite people to sign the petition. It's on I'm almost certain it's on Color of Change, petition free Mutulu Shakur, and not be afraid to speak his name. A lot of times we don't speak our freedom fighters' names. A lot of times we don't struggle for those who struggle for us. So that's what you all do over there on All Politics Are Local. Keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Queen.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, so we are getting ready to head to our next segment. And we have one of our guests on here right now. And actually, Dr. Chowdhury just came in as well. So we have both guests for this segment.
There you go. You got them both now. Yeah.
All Politics Are Local. Zaid, I will let you introduce this segment of these two wonderful people.
Dr. Liza Chowdhury, Ray Chavis, right? Two of our warrior healers in the Newark and the Patterson area. Welcome to All Politics Are Local. But let me just back up for a second. Right? I can remember not long ago, a few months ago, within the last year, I think, one Governor Phil Murphy came to none other than Newark, New Jersey, and said he was going to earmark certain number of dollars in resources to certain kinds of community-based violence intervention programs as a part of a broader strategy of relief efforts, relief resources coming into our community from the federal government and coming from the state government. Then all of a sudden we hear that programs like what we're talking about right? That some of which have grown up right here in Newark, New Jersey. Ray is here with the Newark Community Street Team, one of the first programs of its kind in the country in this area. Got a letter from one Attorney General Matthew Platkin that the funding for the hospital intervention programs are being cut and there will be no access to such funding into 2023, even though some of y'all were there when Governor Phil came through and said he was going to do this, right? And in the throes of coming off of the extreme emotional challenges of a pandemic, and an exceptionally hot summer and all of that, what that means in terms of being a trigger for violence in our community at a critical time such as this, how outrageous is it that some of y'all got this letter? We brought y'all here to lift that up and to lift up your work. Tell us this story about what's going on with y'all work right now. Dr. Chowdhury, you've been here before, right? And you've got all these things attached to your name that most of us ain't got, right? Why don't you lead it off? And Ray, you jump in where you fit in, because we definitely gonna get you in on this.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and Ray on to talk about this very important topic. So some good news to share. Yes, we got some word last week from our TTA, which is the technical assistance provider that the AG's office hired, that after September 30th, the grant was going to expire, which we always knew, but we were waiting for a new RFP so that the program could continue. So we were very shocked when we received a letter from the hobby that, hey, there's not going to be another grant this year after September 30th, but you can do a no cost extension, which basically means if you have money left over from this fiscal year, you can transfer it over to the next fiscal year at no cost. So obviously it left me, like flustered, like what am I going to do? This program costs us $1 million. We have staff that are full-time employees, and I was very concerned. Luckily, I have a great St. Joseph, a hospital partner that is our fiscal sponsor, which is St. Joe's. We're just the sub-awardees, and they decided to step in. But, this was a good trigger moment, I think, for us as a movement in New Jersey that is doing this work, that, hey, we got to wake up. We can't just live RFP to RFP, grant to grant. We need to talk about a sustainability plan for the future. The good thing from this media push and all the activism that we were doing is that we got an immediate response from the AG's office. We had a meeting with them today at 12 p.m. and it was very comforting. They said that, they're not going to let our program shut down. They're very supportive of this program, and they're going to continue to engage with us and figure out other funding opportunities, which is great, right? Especially for the HVIP program. There was an article released this week that talked about how the gun violence in Patterson alone is down 26%. We weren't acknowledged in it. Oftentimes, us as community-based violence intervention efforts are not. And I think that right now is a pivotal time to show that the only thing that changed during the pandemic, besides the uptick in violence, is the fact that the state did put a great amount of investment in community-based violence intervention programs, such as HVIPs and CVVI. We're the reason why there's a downturn in violence, and we need to be able to elevate that more, right? Because they need to know that.
So I want you to slow down. You blaze it. I need you to do that, right? I want you to just back up, just a little more background on what an actual hospital-based violence intervention program is and does. Do that for us, because a lot of our community don't understand what that is.
Yeah, and especially in terms of the context of there's rising violence all over the country, and people are talking about rising violence all over the country, and they're saying, give more money to police. You apparently have programs in Patterson that have lowered violence, that are acknowledged for lowering violence, but yet they want to cut them?
So our program, the way it works is that the hospital we have a hotline that's 24/7. So the minute somebody is a gunshot victim or a stab wound victim that comes in through the hospital ER, we're called. And depending on if the person, the availability of our staff, usually we respond within 24 hours and we'll be at the bedside of that victim. And at that time, that's when you have that key conversation, right, about retaliation, about their needs, because they're thinking about life and death. We also have to, address the issues the concerns that the family has, right, the friends have that are waiting in the ER area, in the waiting area. So at that time, it's so pivotal, right? Because at that moment, the hospital, think about, especially we launched during the pandemic, everything was cold, right? People were tired, staff was overexhausted. So us being there also provided those victims with a lot of needed comfort. Also in Patterson, we had to do a lot of revision of hospital policy, right? Because they weren't really victim and patient centered. So, we learned, rough. It was hard. It was a hard lesson for us to learn, but that, we needed to do a lot of advocacy as far as bedside rights that patients have, because we noticed that some of the things that the police were doing were just not legal, to be quite frank with you, right? So this has been a learning curve for all of us as community members and activists, us, the hospital and the police, right? That, in order for us to work together to provide, provide meaningful services to these victims, we have to look at them as victims. Oftentimes, young Black and brown men and women are often seen as perpetrators of violence, right? They're not seen as victims, not as how you would see a domestic violence victim or a sexual assault victim. So we have to do a lot of changing in that narrative of when we look at gunshot victims, and it's been good, right? Since we've launched in October 2020, because of our advocacy efforts, we've been able to change hospital policy. The hospitals all the way on board with making sure that they're following victims' rights laws and things of that nature. And also we're having a better working relationship with law enforcement, right, when we're at the hospital. So all these things were able to happen because of the HVIP program, because prior to the HVIP program, these victims didn't have the aid that we give them. And also it's important to note that we don't just stop at the bedside, right? Once we get their buy-in, which is oftentimes 90% of the times we do, we're able to follow them back into the community. We make sure that they get their follow-up medical appointments. We make sure that we give them any case management services, mental health therapy. They call us about everything. Sometimes they'll call because they want to retaliate and they want to have a person to listen to them, to talk them down. So all these things are services that we provide in our program.
And
Ray, Chase, go ahead, Jonathan. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, is that also in line with what the CDC said? Is that violence is like a communicable disease? It transfers, right? Like violence spreads like disease. So what you're doing in hospitals is literally looking at where the violence can spread, how it can spread, and you're dealing with it specifically there.
Yep,
and
that's exactly it.
And Mr. Chavis.
Ray, tell us, Ray, now the Newark community street team, they haven't been on in a while, right? And I'm trying to figure out why, right? But the Newark community street team has one of the first of those programs here in Newark, and of course, University Hospital stays quite busy with us on that front. Ray, tell us about the street teams program and how well it's done in our violence reduction work, and why it's important for us to be making these calls to make sure we get this funding to keep this work going.
Absolutely. Thank you, team. Liza spoke so well about it. It's basically everything that she said, and then some. We've actually been in the hospital since 2017. We've consented and serviced over several hundred victims of interpersonal violence, stab wounds, gunshot victims, and otherwise. And like Liza said, we're kind of meeting these individuals at the crossroad, which is why this is so important. You can hardly catch these individuals, especially if they're heavily involved in the streets, or if they're not heavily involved in the streets, and get them to slow down and listen to reason. I think we can all attest to the point that when we're down and out, or when we're at our most vulnerable state, that's when our ears, or we could kind of like hear better. And that's ultimately what was the plan when we set up the hospital violence intervention program, to meet individuals at their crossroads, to meet them at bedside where reason might sink in, like, hey, look, you almost died, but you survived. Let us help you get on the right trajectory. So we've been in the hospital over at UH since 2017. And as I said, we've helped service individuals to the amount of several hundred, get individuals on the right track, offer them wraparound services, get them victim compensation, get them trauma recovery, and just get them relocated if need be. So it is of vital importance, because these are the individuals that typically slip through the crack. These are individuals that plan to retaliate. These are individuals that come back in and out of the hospital from re-victimization because they don't have that warm wraparound services that community-based organizations like ourselves and Patterson Healing Collective provide. Law enforcement is certainly not providing those wraparound services. The hospital is certainly not providing those wraparound services. And even if they were, I shadow my staff oftentimes, and I get the sense from individuals that they get a sense of relief when they see community members come in that hospital, individuals that don't represent an establishment, because number one, there's mistrust there because of the history between the relationships like Liza spoke about, between the permittance of the hospital staff and the violation of the rights that law enforcement have done, that many in law enforcement have done. So when you see community members, number one, we don't have the authority to violate your rights. And number two, we don't have this standard of we can only deal with you as an other. We can't deal you with like our brother or our sister. No, we deal with you like a community member. And we happen to be, in partnership with the hospital, but we can deal with you beyond this hospital. It's not you walk out the door and we'll see you when you come back. No, we walk out the door, we'll meet you. Sometimes we'll take you back to your location. Sometimes we'll escort you to the trauma recovery center. Sometimes we'll escort you to victim services. Many is that they aren't doing that. And that's why it's so important and it's heartbreaking to hear the notification that the OAG put out that they would not fund. And then ultimately we can revisit this next year, because essentially what you're doing is you're putting individuals' lives in danger. You're saying that these individuals' lives can be set on hold for the next year, when in fact they can't. These individuals are heavily traumatized. Some actually was on the lifeline. Some of them barely lived. And because of us, we were able to kind of like nurse them back to good health and offer our wraparound services and get them on the right track, set them on a different trajectory. That's why the HVIP program is so important. And it's disheartening for it not to be funded or for funds to be removed, especially since we know that the new ARPA dollars have been put into communities, and they're saying that they're being used for community violence intervention. Well, this is community violence intervention at its rawest state.
And that's been documented. That's all, and it's been documented that it is working.
It is certainly documented that it's been working. We have to submit reports, letting our level of impact. But listen, we're dealing with human beings. So let's just understand this, that no validation is more important than the individuals and the individuals' families that call us back and say, thank you.
That's right.
That's the real documentation. I get the documentation we need to validate the work and for individuals, but we have that as well. But the validation that we get is when we see these individuals in the community and they're no longer walking with a limp, and they're no longer in the streets, and they're getting trauma recovery, and they receive victim compensation that help them get on the right track. They're employed now, they're starting their own businesses, or they're relocating and then calling back saying, hey, I really appreciate what you sisters and brothers have done for me, because had it not been for the conversation that I had with you at bedside, then I may be back out there in the street re-victimizing, or I may have been re-victimized, or I may have retaliated and wound up in prison. One way or another, it's a cycle of victimization. And this is what we're trying to prevent. So to think that this most important part of community-based public service is not important to the point that you feel like you can defund it is a huge disservice. And it's almost like it's a deaf ear down there, where they don't understand the work that we're doing, or either they're not listening to the voices of the victims that need us.
Right on. Now let me just jump in real quick. Now there's a gathering on Tuesday to highlight and dramatize why this challenge is so important. Y'all want to lift that? You want to lift that up right now? Tuesday, 11 o'clock, corner of South Orange and Norfolk Street here in Newark, by the Medical Examiner's Building, and then that location was chosen because of, we are trying to prevent people from being a statistic in a study inside the medical examiner's office by preventing the kind of violence that ends up with people getting killed, right? Lives are on the line literally with that. So y'all can lift up what's going to happen on Tuesday and why that's important.
Sure, you're right. So we will be down there. We'll be talking. We'll be raising awareness. We're inviting all HVIP staffs throughout the state. We're inviting all community members that have been serviced by HVIP staffs throughout the state. We're inviting all community members that come to the hospital and get the deaf ear or the lack of assistance from the hospital. We're inviting all the community members that come out that need these services, that aren't aware or that wasn't aware that they were out here or that they were available for them. We're inviting everyone out because I think that at some point in time, everyone either has a visit to the hospital or a family member takes a visit to the hospital for some form of interpersonal violence. If you haven't, God bless you. But in our community, we know that that is like a norm.
Widespread.
It's a norm.
That's our pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to have community members like us there to be able to help you out, to be able to assist you, walk you through, to know that you have individuals in your community that's willing to assist you in the way that they should have always been assisted, but weren't. But you have individuals in the community that's advocating for you, that has the clearance to get into the hospital and to do some things and to make some things happen for you and to help you out and assist you in different ways that you haven't been assisted.
You know what?
We closed out our last segment. Go ahead, Don, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Brother Ray a question because he had mentioned the ARPA fund. Have you guys received any of that funding?
No, we have not received the funding with regard to the HVIP program. I believe this was the federal grant, so that funding has not trickled over to the hospital violence intervention program. We're hoping that it does. I know it's been mentioned. The governor mentions, many mentioned that it's strictly will be allocated to community violence intervention work. I'm not sure that that's totally accurate, but no, we have not, and we're pushing for that. Reallocate the funds. In fact, create a budget in the state budget, a slot for the community violence intervention work and particularly the hospital violence intervention work. Create a spot, budget that, put that in your budget because it's important. It's very important. Again, these are hundreds of individuals that will fall through the crack, that will return to the hospital for retaliation or wind up incarcerated or just, because hurt people. Unless there's an intervention. And we are that intervention. We're that voice of reason when these individuals are sitting here at the crossroads and they need to hear that voice of reason. Like I said, I shadow my staff and I go over there and I speak to some of the patients, i.e. participants, at times. And, we just talk and that many of them are skeptical of individuals that are coming because of the system that comes in to talk to them. So when we talk to them and we give them that sense of relief and we create that commonality, I used to live over there. I used to be over there. I'm from over there. I was a victim too, having these conversations with them and letting them know how we got ourselves on a different trajectory. Now it's that, it's that commonality that it helps.
I want to lift that. I want to pin in what you just said, Ray. And Lisa, I want you to jump in this also. But I want you to talk about your staff. Who are your staff members? We ended our last segment with one of our guests talking about reggae being his music of choice. Well, the great Bob Marley had a song called Redemption Song, right? Who are the men and women that make up this work, right? I know I wasn't born Zaid Muhammad for everybody's record. I'm an ex everything, right? Who are the men and women and what have they been through and how does the credible messenger concept, why is it so important in this work? Y'all jump in.
I'll go after Liza.
So our staff predominantly are Pattersonians and people that have been justice involved or people that have been labeled as gang members, right, to dehumanize them, and people that are actual recent survivors of gun violence. And that is so important, right? For example, Teddy Martinez, our HVIP coordinator, he was shot about 12 times on 2 different occasions. And he's in his 50s now, but he's been able to live through that experience and he almost served the life sentence. So for him, this is his redemption and his restoration to the community. He was from Patterson. And when he arrives at that bedside, many times, he knows what that victim is going through and he's able to talk to them empathetically, right? And from a trauma-informed lens. And he also is able to talk them through all the different thoughts they're having because of how traumatized they are. So that's just an example of how influential someone from that lived experience is in that moment. We also have Jason
Davis. He's been on our show, by the way, too. Yeah, Teddy's been on our show before with you, too. I just wanted to, I'm glad you lifted Teddy's example up. He's an excellent example of that.
Right. Jason Davis, he is, we don't like I said, when we talk about gangs, right, we talk about is as youth groups, right, that we need to stop dehumanizing. Jason is a known blood gang member, right, but he uses his leverage in that in that relationship network to help diffuse violence, right? Because we know that people have relationships with other people. He's from Harlem originally, but he has ties to Newark and Patterson, and that's important, right? Because people need to know that just because this is something that you're affiliated with, you shouldn't be dehumanized and labeled as somebody that's a bad person. So I think that during our crises that happen, especially with mental health, Jason is key because he's gone through those times of wanting to retaliate or times of, wanted to put on for the set, right? And he's able to de-escalate some of those situations where people don't know what to do, right? Do I go with my peers or do I stand alone? And how will that look amongst my friends? I can't have that conversation, right? Because I've never lived through that, but he can. And he could even talk them through that. And how do you go back to your neighborhood and not have to walk around with a gun all the time? He can have those important conversations with them. And then we have our recent hirees, right? All of them were recent gunshot survivors that went through our program. I'm talking about one of them just got shot 3 months ago. And thank God he was in our program as somebody that was a recent hire, because we were able to de-escalate all the thoughts that he had. He was a part of a mass shooting. 5 people got shot. A 15-year-old was killed as a result of that mass shooting. And because of him and another HRI member that we have on our team, we were able to make sure that group, because of the trauma and the hurt that they went through, they didn't retaliate, right? And also for him, right? Because he had just came home from prison after doing an 18-year sentence. So for him, all of this is new, right? Everything about, all the beefs that are happening. So for us to be a part of his life was so important. And for him to be a part of our program was so important, right? Because it could have went every which way, because he might have been on that flight or fight mechanism that many survivors go through. So that's just an example of some of the people that we have on our staff. And many of our frontline staff that are outreach workers and HRI members are under 30, and they still live in those neighborhoods that are highly impacted by violence. But many of the people that are victims are also their friends, their cousins, their family members. So it's nothing for them to just go and reach out to them and let them know, hey, I'm here for you. We have this program. Here are the services. We don't have to wait until after the weekend when most offices open at 8:30 a.m. We can get these services and it's healing to you right now. So that's an example of how our program works and why community-based violence intervention is so effective in this work.
Yes, I second that. Thank you, Liza. Yes, to answer your question, Brother Zaid and all, we are the men and women of the community. We are the just and impacted individuals. We are the ones that suffer from interpersonal violence. We are the ones that suffer from vicarious violence. We are the victims. We have victimized. And we are the men and women of that community and of all of those different backgrounds. We are the ones that empathize with these individuals because we have literally been in their shoes. I personally have been victimized, and I have victimized in and out of carceral spaces. I understand the mindset. I understand the mindset of individuals. Most men and women do understand the mindset of retaliation, but I understand it in its rawest sense. So I'm able to connect with individuals, particularly men, from that standpoint. But we also have women on our staff that also have been victimized and have victimized.
Y'all put up a post on Facebook about one of your staff members who personally has serviced over 200 people. Tell us about who that sister is.
Absolutely. Our beautiful sister and HVIP supervisor, Najla Sharif, beautiful individuals. I shadow her often. She's taught me everything I knew in the HVIP program. She serviced over 200 people, 200 individuals, and literally played a part in them changing their lives around. I've watched her approach. She comes with kindness. She has her own story. She's also suffered from interpersonal violence and vicarious violence. And so she takes the approach as if what she would have needed or what her loved one would have needed or what would have helped them, which is the approach that many of us take. But she is awesome. She is awesome with the participants. She's awesome with the patients. She knows how to, she's professional. She knows how to deal with the staff. And for this individual to feel like her job is at risk, or any of my other staff to feel like their job is at risk when they're giving all of themselves to the work, and really see them change in the lives of individuals that were almost on their dying bed, and in many cases on their dying bed. That's like a slap in the face to say that my service doesn't matter, because you have individuals out here that have a steady paycheck, their budgets continue to go up, they're never at risk of losing the budget, and they can't hold a candle to these individuals, community health workers that are in hospitals, talking to these individuals, not interrogating them, talking to these individuals and trying to get them on a different trajectory, not letting them go when they reach the door and say, bye-bye, we'll see you when you come back, but actually calling them within 24 hours of their release, or escorting them home, or calling them the following week, and creating a SMART goal plan for these individuals to make sure that they get on the right track, make sure they have all of their vital statistics in place, make sure they have their trauma recovery in place, make sure they have the certain amount of funds, or if they need to be relocated, working with them for that assistance through victim services. What we offer, there's not an entity that's in the hospital that comes into that hospital that does that. They may have departments that do that, but these individuals don't connect with the victims the same way. So therefore, the victims aren't receptive to the help because they can't connect with them. You represent an establishment. You don't represent somebody I see down the street, somebody that live down the street, somebody I share a community with. You don't represent that same thing. And then I may get one phone call from you. But we double down. It's not no one phone call. We call until you meet your last treatment goals. And so that's important. And that's what the sister Najla Sharif does. And that's what she's been doing for years. That's what she's been doing for years, along with several of our other staff. And like I said, it's like a slap in the face to say that this life-changing and life-saving work doesn't matter to the extent that we say we will defund you. And then you could pick back up 2 years from now or a year from now. So what do you say to the individuals that come to the hospital that looks for the hospital violence intervention program, and the family members that have informed these individuals to look for the hospital violence intervention program because they are effective in their help? Oh, they were defunded.
Right. So it's important, and we're getting ready to wrap up on this on this segment, and you gave us the green light for the proper segue, Ray. Right. It's important that not just the participants and the workers of these programs come out. It's important for the community to come out. Right. So it's 11 o'clock, Tuesday, August 2nd, corner of Norfolk Street, South Orange Avenue, the Medical Examiner's Building. Yes. Come to that press conference and rally and make sure that you are a part of a community being heard, because of the language of our kids on the street. This is why Black Lives Matter, Black and Brown Lives matter.
John, can we put that in the chat so we can put that up?
So what's the repeat that again? 11 o'clock?
11 a.m., August 2nd, corner of South Orange Avenue and Norfolk Street. Press conference and rally condemning the cuts to hospital violence intervention programs.
Yep. And we're going to ask our questions, but I do think these rallies are important, because if they were going to cut the police, they would, in certain communities, people would be outraged, right? But clearly, these programs actually work better than hiring more police officers. I mean, because they actually deal with how violence spreads. You are literally looking at the root causes of the violence, going to where it's
breaking the cycle.
Right. And stopping it before it happens again, because you are literally going to the source, and all of social science backs you. The Center for Disease Control backs you. The results you've gotten back you. And yet they're still cutting you, and they're not cutting other people.
We just had an 80-page case study dropped on our work in Newark alone that's getting attention all around the country. And that's definitely something that we got to lift up in future shows real soon. Before we ask y'all this last question, I want you to also include how folks can be in contact with both the Patterson Healing Collective and the Newark Community Street Team. Ray, make sure you also include the South Ward Public Safety Roundtable, because that's an important place of engagement that is big, and as well as it's doing, it can even be bigger. Because I'm talking to a lot of my folks in the South Ward who are very active and are still yet to plug in. And then we'll ask you our last question and we'll wrap up.
And I got a question I wanted to ask. Do we have names of these people who are threatening to cut funding and so forth that we can target specifically?
Governor Murphy? Right?
Yeah, y'all go ahead and answer.
So from what I understand, because I see Liza wants to share a story, from what I understand, it's coming from the AG's office. That's who's cutting the funding. It's coming from the AG's office. Attorney General Placken, from my understanding, is the one that's pulling the funding ultimately.
The nice liberal progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to be fair, right? Because we did have a conversation today, and I don't want to mitigate the
Clarify.
importance of
Yeah,
that
please
conversation,
clarify.
right?
Fair.
The AG did meet with us today and wants to support this program and promised us, right? I mean, the AG's office did meet with us, and they said that this is priority and they have a commitment to it, right? So I think that yes, you know, but right now is what's the future plan, right? Like we don't want to wait just for like a year. What's the future goals of this program? Like, how are you going to, you know, invest it for the next 5 years? And I think that that's what our rally is about next Tuesday. It's not just the HVIP, right? Okay, that's a band-aid right now for the year. You stepped in and you said, yes, you're going to support it. But what about for the next 5 years? What if there's another administration? Do we have to constantly chase RFPs and, you know, have these rallies to raise awareness about our work? This should be in the public safety framework for New Jersey, just like police and any other law enforcement agency is. And I think that that's our fight moving forward in this work. And like you guys said, Brother Zaid, you said about that report for Newark. It's so important for us to lift our data, right? Because we're so busy doing the work. And we know that our main goal is to save lives. And we care so much deeply about the community that we're not worried about the bureaucracy. But honestly, at this point, we have to share this narrative, right? Because a lot of people don't know how important the work we're doing is on the streets. And I wanted to share a story with you that just happened today. We just dealt with a survivor that he got shot. He's a father and he got shot with his son, and his son did not survive. And in the midst of all that, the family, what they're worried about is our program being defunded because they read those newspaper articles. And all they're thinking about, even though they got to bury their son next week, is how can they lift up their voice to help us? And that just kind of shows you the importance of our work and the importance of community, right? Because even in this time of grief, a father just lost his son where he could have lost his life as well. They're thinking about how they can give back to us because of the help that we're giving them as a family. So I just want to leave you guys with that story to show the impact of this work and why our city needs this money to be constantly coming in, not just based on RFPs and grants.
Let me ask you a question. Let me just ask this, Zaid. Are you guys aware of how much money the state was given in 2 payments in that ARPA fund? Are you guys aware?
I'm not certain. I'm not certain the numbers. I know a lot of numbers been thrown around, so I can't make the distinction between.
Let me tell you what that number was, my brother. That number was $1.9 trillion to the state of New Jersey.
Yeah,
1.9 trillion, and it came in two payments, and his was interesting, you know, because we talked to Keisha about this too. And
Keisha Uri, my daughter, Director of Office of Violence Prevention.
And of course, we'll have to check the numbers because, like, a lot of numbers do get thrown around.
And so when you talk about that, you know, because when I listen to you all, it seemed like to me you all have just like our sister in New York, Erica Ford. You guys are on the ground, and it seems to me that the people willing to talk to you guys instead of police officers, right? In terms of not only trying to catch people who are committing crimes and people who might, you know, go back and recommit a crime, this recidivism stuff. I don't understand. It doesn't require that much brain knowledge to me that says that you all are just as important as the police department. Nobody's talking about getting rid of the police department, but we're talking about you guys working.
It's a complementary strategy that is working.
So how could that not? How could that not be? How could that not make sense to the AG? I don't understand that.
But hopefully probably the bigger thing is not only for the moment, but like you said, this needs to be part of the state budget.
Sustainability,
please. Right.
Absolutely. You cannot put individuals under pressure and under resource them, and then penalize them for not underperforming or overperforming. You can't do that. That's like a setup. That's
I just read this report, John. Right here, it says $1.9 trillion. Right, and that's why and so that's why I was reading this because, you know, when you were going to have Keisha on, I wanted to ask her about it. I was, you know, I'm saying, well, what is all of this talk about defunding you guys when this is public? This is not something that's not public. You can go Google this. So when they tell you, Lisa, that they might not want to fund you and all of the people that you're hiring and the great work that you all are doing, well, where's the money going then?
Oh, you're talking about the overall stimulus. You're talking about the overall stimulus budget
Right.
that he signed. You're talking about
Right.
it's not. It didn't go to New Jersey. That's the overall thing for the United States.
But John, in that
Right.
was 2 payments, and it says nonprofits, right? In that is money that these guys who are nonprofits can actually qualify for.
Right.
And
That's
all
true.
of the work that they're doing, so because what Lisa said was the AG said he was going to identify funding sources. Okay, well we can tell you what some of those funding sources are.
Right. But we are running overtime in this segment. And Ed, you're doing the Donna. You're doing the Donna.
Hey, listen, man. This brother and sister just got me excited. I'm sorry, man.
I know.
You know, I think that there's no damn way we should see these
right.
brothers and sisters having a fight on this particular level.
Right,
Come on, man.
Right.
It's back.
No, I agree.
They're saving our very lives, and we need to say that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I just say that there is local stuff that everybody can do if they're listening, right? Every mayor's office received money from ARP funds, and they're supposed to have hearings and conversations about how that's going to be allocated. And in ARP dollars, like for example, Patterson received 60 million. I think Newark got well over 100 million. There's supposed to be language in there to fund HVIPs, fund CBVI. So it's not just the governor, right? We have to reach them at the local level too, that, hey, you guys all got money, the county's got money. So people are not being transparent on how this money is being spent. And I think that citizens that really care about this kind of work, they need to reach out to their local leaders and tell them, hey, you need to put some of that money into this type of work.
Absolutely. Let me tell you this also. This is your elder organizer just trying to tell you something also. We can do our own hearings and show our work. So the community understands our work, and those who are responsible for those resources have to give proper account in terms of transparency about why that work is not being properly supported. So just put that in the back of your head as to things to do next after Tuesday, right? Jonathan, ask him our last question, because I know we've already run over time, but ask him our last question that we got to ask everybody before they go.
All right, so we always ask this, who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group, or who you're rocking with right now?
Go with Ray first, because Ray's first time on.
I'll go with Kendrick Lamar. I'm kind of a fan of the brothers.
All right. Dr. Chowdhury, you were here before. Has it changed?
Yeah, it's changed a little because we just came back from Queensbridge. We did a site visit at K Bain's location in Queensbridge. So I'm a rock with Nas because he's on my mind right now.
All right.
Great segment, y'all. Right? Powerful as always.
But the first hip hop museum in the Bronx just opened up on the 28th of last month. So
we've been talking about it. In fact, we've been trying to get somebody on to deal with that. That's absolutely. We always end the show with our hip hop segment where we lift all of that up. Right on. All right. Okay, y'all. Great segment. Right on to Tuesday the 2nd, 11 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Tuesday the 2nd, 11 o'clock on South Orange Avenue and Norfolk Street. That's right by where University Hospital is. It's right in front of the coroner's office, right?
Yes.
Right. That's right.
All right. Thank you so much. We're gonna have you on again, clearly, because the work that you're doing is just so incredibly important.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Peace.
Thank you.
All right.
Peace.
All right, y'all.
All right. That is where All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio. Streaming talk show. Yes.
You know what? Zaid, you gave me an idea, man. You know what we should actually do? We should actually put together, right, as part of the convention, a public hearing, right?
You know that's right. That's it. There you go.
There should have already been like that. If there's not a proposal,
you got the players.
There should be, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You got the players to lift that up.
Let's do that. Let's put together some publicity.
And what they're talking about is
some graphics to it, and then let's make it a big part of the convention, man.
And what they're talking about is the National Black Political Convention that's going to be taking place in Newark, New Jersey in October. The National Black Political Convention is going to be bringing people here from all over the country. It is being promoted by Mayor Ras Baraka, by Mayor
Lumumba
of Jackson, Mississippi. Sonia Sanchez, and Mtume, what before he passed away,
Oh,
was
yeah.
integral in getting this whole thing started. So it's going to be in Newark, New Jersey in October. And yes, all the anti-violence collectives, I think they probably already have a panel already. But yes, we've got to promote that and bring it up.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
We
Well,
are
the late great Joe Lewis is always going to be good.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. We are getting ready to go to our next segment, and the next segment one is near and dear to me. We are interviewing, like all of you know, I'm a debate coach.
No.
For many years.
No.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. You know, I'm a debate coach. You know, I've been a debate coach for many years. Part of the reason why I love doing this show is sometimes I have the opportunity to share part of my world, part of what we do with everyone else. Newark has always supported debate. Newark from 1980, right? And a lot of you heard about things that I do. A lot of you, my friends, like, oh, this great stuff, right? But I'm having the honor, and I mean this sincerely, right? I'm having the honor to interview and talk to someone who is a close friend and mentor, right? A lot of the success that you've heard me having, the person that I'm talking to is directly responsible for in multiple levels, right? I'm not exaggerating, right? Because he is the most accomplished living debate coach in the United States, and maybe the most accomplished maybe the most accomplished debate coach, period, in the history of our activity. I'm just going to run down some things before, like his name.
Mic dropper, carry on.
Right, it's kind of like when people are talking about Michael Jordan and LeBron, right? And they're talking about these debates of who the greatest of all time is, right? Aaron Timmons will be mentioned, right, in the greatest of all time for high school debate coaches across the United States. And I'm just going to go over just some of the stuff, right? Like he had there are a lot of divisions, right? Different types of debate. Many coaches go their entire career trying to get one championship, right? Like me, I've never won a national championship, right? He has won so many. We literally had to ask him. He had forgotten some of the national championships that he won. And it's not an exaggeration, right? He has won in policy debate for the National Speech and Debate Association 2 policy debate championships. He has won 3 for the National Tournament of Champions. For Lincoln Douglas debate, he won 3 national championships. For the National High School Tournament of Champions, he won 3 championships. He in World Schools debate, right? Like a newer form of debate, he won 2 world championships in 2 national championships in World School division. He won 3. This brother even won in oral interpretation, not even a debate event, a speech event that he coached. And the level of, and that's just the national championships at the national championship tournaments, right? That is not runner-ups, because he had more runner-ups. We spent the whole show talking about that, right? Like, when I'm telling you that he's had a consistent standard of excellence since 1981, that is not hyperbole. He has forgotten more about academic high school debate than most people know, right? So all of that to say, I am real honored.
Pays the teacher.
Yes, I am honored, right, to introduce,
Thank you.
talk to, and have a conversation with my friend who just happens to be, right, one of the best debate coaches of all time, right? And again, not hyperbole. You can't match this stuff. And he's done it in multiple places. So thank you so much for coming on, Aaron.
Thank you.
It's really an honor to be talking to you right now.
And Aaron, before you get started, I want to tell you, man, out of all of those accolades that my brother just rightly laid on you, man. One of the most important things he said, man, he said, Brother Aaron. Wow.
Thank you.
You
Thank
know,
Right.
yeah.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that.
I heard my man of God say one time. He said you can call me bishop, you can call me pastor. He said, but do you know what means more to me in the body of Christ when brothers and sisters call me a brother?
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Jonathan. It means a lot. I've been a long-time supporter of your program and all that is speech and debate in Newark, but also of this program. And just the opportunity to be on means a whole lot. So thank you very much.
Well, no, thank you, man. Always. I'm going to also introduce one of our co-hosts, Hakim Green. He is Newark's ambassador to hip hop. He works with KRS. He has worked with KRS-One. He has worked with many other artists. He's an artist, a great artist in his own right. He's amazing. We're always honored to have him on our show. And Hakim, hey man, welcome.
Jonathan, you give the best introductions, bro.
Salute him to be my hype man.
Booyah to some of that.
When he introduces me, it's like I just feel great. I feel special. I feel like, man, salute to you, Jonathan. I appreciate you.
Who the hell he talking about?
Well, thank you. Well, that's because you are. That's because you are, man. So here's the thing, right? Aaron Timmons, you know a lot about winning. I would gather to say that you are intense. You are probably one of the most intense people I've ever met when it comes to focus and winning. Where did it start? Like, where'd you grow up? Give me some background. Where did this intensity of focus begin?
Always been a Texan. Grew up in the mean streets of Dickinson, Texas. Nobody's ever heard of where that is. It is between Houston and Galveston. And for a long time, spent some time, as many young Black men, thinking about sports and participating in sports and doing reasonably well, but then decided I wanted to have a bit of a different challenge because I've always liked to read, I've always liked to write, I've always liked to see what's going on in the news, and speech and debate seemed to be a good avenue for me to do that. In regards to competition, I just always like to win. And many people say that, but part of what I think you may ask me about, I'm not exactly sure, is strategies to engage in the process of aligning a desire to win with all of the skill sets needed to do that. And that's something that I think I've tried to do over my life as a coach, but also just in life. It's just kind of like to win to the degree possible. I remember us sitting at a restaurant at some point. There was a Wii game several years ago. And according to you, I may or may not have dug in and kind of leaned into the process, at which point you then laughed in the way that you do.
Right. Okay, so yeah. We were playing this game. We were teaching at a workshop in the summer. Yeah. Playing it just to get, it was like one of those games in a bar where you just like, it's a video game, right? And then I look over, right? We're playing, right? Pushing people off, right? And I got up a little bit, right? Pushing them off, right? And then I look over, right? And I look at his face. My man is in it. He is in it. He is not. He's like, you pushed me off of this thing on the video game? Oh man, he was locked in. I know you're talking about. I want to go back to you growing up a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question about a bike.
Okay.
I don't know whether you want to, how you want to do that, but you.
Fair enough.
You didn't just fall out the earth. Like what is that motivation?
Rumor has it there was a bike that a friend of mine took from me, and then just wanted to ride it around. He didn't really keep it the whole time, and apparently, according to my friends, my bike was taken, and then that motivated me to be incredibly intense, both in regards to getting that back, both in regards to thinking about the way that I engaged in life and things along those lines, and just trying to make sure I got the bike back, which I did end up doing, by the way. We won't talk about how, program. But sometimes in order to win, you got to do some things that you got to do to get the upper hand in that situation. But no, I grew up two-family home. We didn't have a lot at the time. And for me, I've always been someone who felt it was important to say what was on your mind, to speak and to be heard, and to use a voice in a way to change not only your circumstance, but perhaps for those that don't have the ability, the desire, or the motivation to speak, to uplift their situation. So I've always been that person, someone who has felt comfortable, and maybe not even comfortable, but motivated to say what was on my mind. And speech and debate, despite what I was told at the time, was a good opportunity for me to do that. And I say that because I was told
at the time.
Yeah. And I say that because I was told that debate is not something I should do. As a young Black man, that's not something we really did. That perhaps I should do the interpretation events. I should entertain people, poetry, prose, that kind of thing. And I was also told that I was not smart enough to do debate in the way that I wanted to do it and reach some of the goals that I had seen others have that I thought was something that I wanted to engage in. So both as a student, I was told I wasn't really smart enough to succeed in the activity. Also as a coach as well. I was told.
So let me just back this up a little bit.
Right? Feel free.
So this is like in the 70s. You are a freshman, sophomore in high school, right?
Yep.
And you go to your school has a debate team. And you go to your like, hey, I want to debate. And your debate coach, your debate team, like who told you?
It was one school in the town. Started doing it in middle school, actually, where I did do the interpretation events, poetry, prose, acting, that kind of thing, and had some success at that, but wanted to not stop doing it, but add the skills of oratory and debate to my wheelhouse as well. And that's where some of the earlier coaches that I had led me to believe that wasn't really something that I did. And at the time, even in college, there was not a lot of Black folks doing debate. Just didn't happen. I remember in high school, maybe debating 2 people that were Black. In college, I remember 2, maybe 3 people of 4 years participating there. And a lot of that sometimes centers around in schools pushing our young Black folks to do other things, whether or not it's other non-academic activities like athletics. And I'm all for athletics and was decent in a couple sports and whatnot. But that wasn't where I wanted to really put my energy, given how time is finite, if that makes sense. So I just kind of pushed through that. And that was part of the motivation. And you've known me well enough to know that if someone says I can't do something from a competitive perspective, that just motivates me to try to push myself in a way to get the skill set to accomplish that goal. Same thing true for my students. If we're told that we're not able to accomplish a particular thing, that just causes me to dig in a little bit more to figure out how to do that, both for them and myself as well.
And I think again that is a particular understatement, but it's also a theme, right? Because you're talked about this in high school, but in going to college, like clearly you're a brilliant person, right? So clearly you were encouraged to go to college.
By my family, yeah, absolutely. I did not feel like I got a lot of support from my school and some of the guidance counselors at the time in the 70s. So was told that I needed to not emphasize this so much, that I needed to focus on some other things, perhaps there's a continual push for me to do sports. And again, I really enjoy sports, was not bad at sports, but at the same time, not where I wanted to put my time. So I think there was more, it would be fair to say, of a familial push to do sports. To do forensics, go to college, things along those lines, and be happy in doing that. So.
In college, you decided to become a teacher and debate coach. Why?
It's a good question, because I thought I would be good at it. Thought I would be able to get some of the things, and I did have a really good coach my senior year in high school, and gave me some guidance on ways to do things correctly, things like that. And I felt it was something that gave me a broader voice to do all the things that I had done both in college and in high school. I think I'm a pretty good instructor in regards to meeting people where they are, knowing how to push them in a way to get the most out of them. And I realized that pretty early from my perspective. But also at the time, I didn't really get a lot of other. I was told I'd be pretty good at being an attorney. Decided for a variety of reasons not to go in that direction. At the time, it was you're a really good speaker, so you should be a preacher. Decided not to do that. Mm-hmm. Teacher seemed to be the next best thing, and it was decided probably in 7th, 8th grade for me that that's the direction that I wanted to go. To be something that I didn't see around me is someone who wasn't an athletic coach, and I had great athletic coaches, but a Black male in an academic endeavor that could lead other Black students toward academic success.
Okay. Now, you decided to teach. A lot of people don't know this, right? A lot of people don't know that you taught at 3 schools before you went to Greenhill School, right? Yep. And had considerable success at those schools beforehand. Like Greenhill School right now is a very elite school in Dallas. It has peacocks in it. It's a beautiful school.
That's true. We do have peacocks.
I think, or somebody famous people have walked through the halls, have come through the halls, right?
That's right.
But that is not where you got your first national championships, and it's not where
correct.
You started coaching. Tell me about those. Where did you first start coaching, and what was that like?
What I would say about that, where I work is not who I am. And I think that's pretty important because some people tend to assume you, and because you work at a particular place, that you embody everything that is linked to that place. And that's something I've never done. The direct answer to your question is the first national championship was at public school in Carrollton, Texas. There were around 2,000 students there at the time. And I had come previous to that from very small public schools in Southeast Texas. The first school that I taught at had 225 people, I believe. The next school was a little larger, around 350 or so. And then I moved up to Dallas because I had an opportunity to teach at a larger school that gave me more resources to allow me to do more of the national circuit kind of things. And the first national championship was in 1990, I believe. So at a Newman Smith High School in Carrollton.
Okay. And it's interesting because you have to literally go back and think about, my first national championship way back in 1990, and that's awesome, right? And was that theme that was going on, like that the team that was in the 1990 team at Newman Smith, is that did similar thing happen? Like y'all would
yeah.
What was going on?
We were told that
it seems like people still keep doing the same thing.
They keep making the same mistake. Right. They keep making the same mistake. Initially, we were told we couldn't compete with the private schools at the time. There was a colleague of mine who was a coach, and we had defeated this team several times along the way. I remember them looking at the students, and he said, how'd it go? He said, we lost again. This time it wasn't at all close. You know, we kind of got embarrassed. He said, "You lost to them again." And this is me at the, and we're in earshot.
So they say this.
What I remember him saying was, "You are genetically superior to them. How do you keep losing to these people from this private school?" Well, public school. Me, knowing me, took that to heart. We then worked, even more so than we had been doing. It may or may not be true that I had a key ring for about 15 years that had the school in question of the coach that said that. So when I'm getting in my car at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night to come home, I could see why I was putting in that work. It was the idea of being able to just disprove what was said about me and my students and our inferiority. And it is a constant theme that I see. And one thing I hope we get to talk about is the inability of many people to see Black excellence conjoined with academic endeavors. They see us on the field, they see us on the court, they see us on the diamond. They don't see us many times in academic spaces. And that is something that I feel has followed me from the time I was a student to young coach to now much older coach. And there is still that disrespect, I feel, for Black intellectual endeavors.
Wow. And so you're saying that this is something that not just in the 70s when you were in school, or the 80s in college, or the 90s, so you're saying even after you won the national champion at Newman, even after you won some of the other national championships.
I'm saying yesterday. Yeah, I'm saying this week. I'm saying last month. I'm saying last year, right? I mean, it is a reoccurring theme, I feel. We don't want to talk about, as much as we should, I feel, Black excellence in academic endeavors. So I think it's an important conversation to have.
Brother Aaron, can you just talk a little bit on that line? Tell me about your students.
I can. It is one of my, if a question was, what is my regret one of my regrets about coaching? And the answer is fairly simple for me. That is not coaching more students that look like me and came from my background, to be able to give them the skill sets they need to maybe navigate, predominantly white institutions in the way that we sometimes, if not many times, need to do overall. And it comes from several places. There is the idea that many of our Black students can't succeed in the way that they need to, that they have to work too hard to do that, that maybe, again, still, in 2022, we need to have them do sports, or we need to have them do choir, or we need to have them do cheerleading, at least in my school. And those are all great activities. That being said, if there's an opportunity for them to have a voice in this other kind of activity, I'm not sure why we're dissuading many of our students of color from doing that. And I feel like we are. Some of it are white colleagues that have kind of low expectations in regards to what we're able to succeed. Sometimes it's us in regards to, you don't really want to focus on that. You want to do this other thing. So I think more education is really important in regards to what this activity is, how transformative it is, how it gives you the skills to not just do well in an academic activity, but things that you will then use every day to advocate both for yourself and for others as well.
I think that segues right into a conversation about something that happened around 2012, 2013. Aaron Timmons, excellent debate, obviously, at Greenhill, been winning championships, been helping people. He helps people at like get into tournaments, advice, right? Like he's always helping people, right? Like and in there was a kid from Philadelphia who is great kid from a school, didn't really have a coach, didn't really have a team. Brother from Philadelphia, and he reached out to Aaron Timmons, and Aaron Timmons took him and helped start coaching him. At that point, like our team wasn't traveling much nationally, like we were trying to build, right? But the stuff that happened, the stuff that went through there, really set the groundwork for all the great things that happened to me in 2000 and our team in the city in 2014, 2015 on down, right? Like our school rose to another level because he reached out to a kid named Jalan, and I'll say his name, a kid named Jalan, and some stuff happened. And I think you found out some stuff, right? Like because you're coaching at a predominantly white wealthy school, right? And the level of pushback, people might doubt you, but the level of pushback that I think you got when you started helping this black kid, I had never seen before. Like I had never seen.
It was a little different. There was
Tell me about what happened when you reached out and helped a brother from Philadelphia.
And on that, Brother Aaron, what was in you, right, that made you want to do that?
Well, part of what I do and why I do what I do is that there is no one that looked like me when I was coming up and had the institutional knowledge or insight or maybe access the level of power, some would say, not all, some would say. And anytime someone needs help, particularly those that look like us, I'm more than willing to do that. There was a young man that I saw who was with his grandfather. And I saw them at a tournament or so. Me being me, I walk up and I introduce myself. Don't really want anything, but hey, how's it going? How are you doing? My name is, where are y'all from? Et cetera. And then we formed a friendship. A young man came to my workshop in the summer. He said, I really like somebody to help. I want to reach another level. I said, I have somebody for you. I'm not sure if it'll be somebody you approve of, but I'd be willing to help. Yeah, I work at another school, but I'm willing to put in this work to help you get to another level. Once people figure that out, the white lash, if you want to call it that, was like no other. This young man was always having something happen at the tournament that would limit his success. A last-minute judge change, a pairing that doesn't make a lot of sense, pairing being who he would end up debating against, a panel where there are a group of judges that may have one person that would be sympathetic and empathetic to what it was trying to do, but as importantly, didn't have a vested interest in the outcome and would just call it like I see it. Because there's politics involved in debate as well, right? There are people that are supposed to win, and when anybody comes into the scene that can contradict that narrative, many times there's pushback. What I've not seen, particularly at that time, is a pushback that occurred about a young black man who was with his grandfather who wanted to access national circuit debate.
Which he wanted to debate around the country. He wanted to go to these tournaments. Some of the backlash that had was like a whole new wave of cyberbullying happened, right? And it didn't just happen to the kid. It happened to you. It happened to your team.
Oh, 100%.
Briefly about that.
Sure, I can. Wanted to get into the Tournament of Champions, and you have to have bids to get into the Tournament of Champions, meaning you have to reach a certain level to have one leg, then you need to get another. I was on, and still am on, a committee as part of the Tournament of Champions to give at-large bids to the Tournament of Champions. What I did was I utilized their rules, but I utilized their rules for his advantage. Backlash was incredible. The cyberbullying was incredible. The adults who said nothing to the online vitriol was incredible. Was getting phone calls at the time at my house, emails at work, things along those lines, and people were just incredibly bold about it. You know,
yeah,
and
I got one of my debaters at the time, Naberto, came to me and he was like, Alston, stuff's going on online and you got to see it. Like people are talking about Mr. Timmons. And I'm like, at first I was like, they're just hating. They're always hating, right? Like he wins, they hate, right? And he was like, no, this is different. And so it was like literally having to call people up, having to engage adults. Like I believe that you had to do certain things to get them to take certain things offline.
Yes. Yeah, there was a big push because, and it wasn't the last time this happened, but at the time there was a big push to just allow students and adults to say anything they wanted to about minors. And that just wasn't going to work with me. So ended up talking to the person that owned the company. They ended up taking it, stopping it. But what's really interesting about that 10, 12, 15 years later is much of that stuff has been scrubbed from the internet.
Right. And
because now some of those people are moving into professional kinds of gigs, things along those lines. But the damage, I feel, had been done. And again, it's just an erasure of the history of racism and whiteness that exists writ large, but also as part of the debate activity, I feel.
And so the attack wasn't really just solely on the young man you were helping out in Philadelphia. It was really targeted at you and really who you are in the
absolutely
that you were
absolutely right, absolutely. Without getting too deep in the time that we have, I think for all of the very nice things that Jonathan said about me to start the segment, if I looked a little different, there would be a whole lot more accolades associated with that, would get more respect in the broader community, my workplace, etc. But again, sometimes it is hard to equate Black success and excellence with academics. And I think that's a really important theme, at least from my messaging to folks. And that's something that we really have to interrogate, I feel.
There's only one other question I want to ask on this because it leads into the part that I want to get in on winning. You had a debater who's now a famous, nationally recognized writer, science fiction writer, one of the most known science fiction writers in the world right now, was one of your former students who was right in the middle of this, right? Who ended up getting cyberbullied as well, right? Like along with you. So you told me about a moment that she was cyberbullied so badly online that she felt like quitting, right?
Yep.
And that she was distraught. She was no longer going to do the activity. I think that this is one of those motivational stories that is an Aaron Timmons thing, right? Like I think that there are a lot of things I've learned from you. All the things you talk about, the minutia of the game, understand different ways, the parts of the game. But I think that this is probably the thing that is most you. How did you respond?
It's a hard story to tell, and I'm not a Black man who is afraid to show emotion. I think that's important that we do that as opposed to not. But Jalan was 2010, maybe 2011, something like that. This is a 3 years later. and there was a young Asian woman that was just being attacked online because she was just kind of laying waste to the young white boys that couldn't really stand up to her. Again, intensified attacks online. Child not doing well emotionally, not eating, not, and she came into my office and I knew the conversation was going to be one of two things. Either three. A, I want to switch to another format where there are more adults and they don't treat children this way. B, I want to quit. Or C, can you help me win? Can you help me get him? We chose C. And we chose C. And there was probably 6 or 7 months where the sole focus and intensity is not leaving any stone unturned to make sure that she had the opportunity to do as well as possible at this last tournament. We had a thing. There are 7 rounds. There are 5 elimination rounds or so. And then we had a countdown, so, we started, we got 10 left. We got 9 left. We got 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. She ended up getting to the finals. Okay. And then there's one left. Champions. What's that?
This is at the National High School Tournament Champions.
That's right. There's one left.
Prestigious events in all of high school debate.
Right. This is after thousands of articles and materials and dozens of books read. This is after going to lots of invitationals along the way. This is dealing with the vitriol and the hate that was online. And it ended up working out for her. Ended up winning the finals on a 2-1, which people were were very upset about. There was more vitriol online about that. But the foundational part of that is we know that there is racism that is inherent to America, to our society, to the institutions in which we work. Same thing is true within the activity of debate. And part of what I want to push, as long as I'm doing it, is making it a space that is as comfortable as possible for students that look like me, but also folks who are traditionally underserved. So we put in, and Jonathan kind of joked about my level of focus and success. When the lights come on and when the students really care, there is a different level of focus that I have that has served myself and students really pretty well, I feel.
The way that I would potentially describe it, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, it seems like there's a burning that or a fire that is within that cannot be extinguished until the job is done. That you cannot stop. It is something. Yes. I think you feel something physical in your chest, in your stomach, that just won't stop until it's done. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely correct. But you're absolutely correct. And I'm not going to say that that's healthy. I'm not going to say that increases lifespan. I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is that is the way I've chosen to approach competition. Have I mellowed at a bit of an older age? Some would say yes. Some would say not really. I think I have to a degree. That being said, there are times where you have to have focus. And one of the things I'm pretty good about is having students, if they're willing to do what I'm asking, maintain the focus and the strategies necessary to put themselves in a position to do well. That does not always mean you will win. But what I always tell students is, if you have done everything possible, if you have worked as hard as you can, if you have left no stone unturned to figure out both your strengths, but as importantly, your weaknesses, as well as the strengths and weaknesses of the opposition. The good thing about debate is that it's a subjective activity. The bad thing about debate is that it's a subjective activity, which means sometimes it just doesn't go your way. But if you can walk away that you did everything you can to put yourself in a position to win, you can be comfortable with that. One of the worst things is knowing that you didn't quite do enough in the moment, and you could have done a little bit more. So there are times where I'm pretty focused about things. I think that's a fair assessment.
And I just want you to break that down, right? Like you are in the debate room. You had just finished talking to Rebecca had given you your answer about wanting to win it all, right? What's the process? Because I think that you have a process about how to win that you executed at that moment, probably better than you had ever executed. Learned some stuff. Brought back some stuff later that came from that process then.
Sure.
What was that?
Well, I think for me, there are really two overarching things in the way I approach debate. Some would say life, but debate is one, just outwork everyone. And the other thing is you got to be a student of the game, meaning you got to figure out what the rules are. You got to figure out what everybody else is doing. You got to figure out what works for you. You need to know what and who holds the levels of power and control to certain things. And if you know that and maybe have access to that, that can really help out. But there are two things that I ask students if they are, I want to win X. And we have a very nice debate room. We have some very nice accolades in the room. Some are intimidated by said accolades. Others are motivated by some of the things that are in the room. Trophies. But I asked them
they got bad trophies.
I mean, I'm not going to be on your show and be like, we got.
I'll do it for you. I'll let you know. You the accolades. No, there's a wall of trophies. You go in, you see it, you see the history, you see it lined up. You have no doubt where you are.
Yeah. And again, that intimidates some people, that motivates some people. But what's important for me is self-reflection on the part of those who are working to achieve a goal. And I think this applies to debate, but it also applies to business. It also applies to life. I think you have to, first of all, be honest with yourself and others about what you want competitively. Everybody says they want to be Michael Jordan. Everybody wants to be Kobe. Everybody wants to be, Steph or Giannis or whomever, right? Everybody wants to hold a trophy. The question becomes, what are you willing to do in that moment to sacrifice to get to a point to put yourself in a position to achieve those competitive goals? Because everybody will say they want to win, but not everyone has a desire, the focus, the heart, the motivation, the ability to respond to constructive feedback, which can seem a little hard at some point to get your goal. And I think that reflection moment is really pretty important. There's something else that I've recently added. I think you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself, and you have to know how hard you can push yourself and still be healthy. I've increasingly learned how to work.
And you said this
smarter,
is right? Like you're saying this last part is more new. Is this like influenced by COVID? Influenced by the recent happenings?
It is maybe by COVID. Is maybe just reflecting on ways to be better, because working longer doesn't always mean working smarter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, and I have this speech that I do at summer workshops about how to win. And I won't bore anybody with all of that now or whatnot, but one thing that's important is being in reasonably good physical condition to be able to stay up a little later, to be able to, work a little harder, to be able to excel at your best when you're physically tired. Because some of the debates that students will have that are most important is when they are really tired. after a long day of school, after a long week of school. In the case of Rebecca, after 6 or 7 months of being bullying, and you're 16 years old, and there have been other students that have stories with, along those lines. But you also have to know what your limits are. You have to know when to stop as well. So there's a fine balance there between knowing yourself, pushing yourself, but then knowing how to balance a really good social and emotional perspective, because debate and many things in life can motivate or it can consume. And you don't ever want to get to a point where it's consuming you, because not only are you not as effective in getting some things done, it is unhealthy in a sense. So trying to work on balance, I think, is really pretty important.
Like
and so, Aaron, John, I just wanted to ask a question before we run out of time, because y'all been accusing me all night of running the clock. Right. And so, Aaron, I just want to ask this, right? Of course, I think that if we were to read your history, we hear the victories, right? We hear the compassion. But I think that if someone was to say, what would, like they said to Dr. King, what would you want people to say about you? Remember Dr. King said, don't talk about all my degrees, don't talk about, my Pulitzer, say this. What would you want people to say about you?
Well, I do hope to get to the mountaintop with everybody here, but what I would say is that I was compassionate, I was intense, I cared about those around me. I attempted to help to lift up those who maybe had some difficulty in lifting up themselves. And at the end of the day, was pretty good at this activity, but more importantly, was a nice guy in the process, because some of the people that may be the best at a thing may not be good people, if that makes sense. And at the end of the day, hopefully people thinking that I was a good person in the way that I engaged profession, life, etc., is really pretty important to me. And I hope that there is someone that would say that when I'm done with all of this.
Awesome, man. And I thought that having met you for the first time, my picture of you, man, is you approaching that young brother in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
And just the mere fact that you were willing to put all that work, all that time in, right? And match somebody, right?
Oh yeah.
Who didn't know you, and that you were willing to do that much giving, right?
Yeah. And there have been other Black students along the way who have asked for similar things, albeit not as intense. They've not shown the same gratitude, I would say, as that young man, and very much consumed, but then not really given back in a sense of even helping the next generation of folks. And that is certainly a regret of mine. One thing that I did want to say, and I appreciate the very kind things that Jonathan said about me at the very beginning, but if you read through the name itself, doesn't really indicate or denote ethnicity. So, whatever. But many people have said to me, if you read the bio, you would think I would be a middle-aged, slightly older than middle-aged white dude with an Ivy League degree. And there's something to be said for that. And I know we're running out of time, but if I could have a moment to tell a quick story about work. There's a gentleman that came in who I worked with for a number of years. He said, I'd heard great things about the debate team, the debate program. I went by the room. I saw all the trophies. That was really cool. I kept hearing things about how great the students were. I met some of them. And then I met you. And I was surprised to know that you were the coach of the team for so long. My answer to him in the moment is that because you equate academic excellence with whiteness. Well, what's surprising to me? You said I was nice. You said I was articulate. You said he even said that. And this is just kind of a thread that is probably pushing me to do even more than I maybe should, is been able to accomplish a lot of things, but at the same time, people have a hard time believing that it's me, if that makes sense. And I'm not real sure what else one has to do to.
I don't. What do you mean by that? They don't really know it's you, because clearly, right? Like, I mean, you brought so much to where you are right now. Clearly, you're lauded, you're appreciated, you're treated very well. Like,
did you mean at work?
I was, yes.
My current employer?
That must be the case.
I would say that is not the case. Right. I would say that is not the case. And the check is nice. But at the same time, I don't think people see or value or appreciate the level of excellence that has been brought to their institution, is what I would say. I think recent conversation was I intimidate people because I bring a level of academic rigor to any conversation. Which my answer was, do you want me to dumb it down? It's like, well, no. And then I'm like, well, so if my physical presence is causing angst among colleagues, students, not really students, leadership team, whatever, that's something we probably need to unpack then, because it is not something I'm actively doing. It is their feeling of inferiority, I guess, which seems to be a them issue, not a me issue, if you're saying I'm not coming after people. So I think people respect at my current employer what I do to a degree. I think they believe it will continue if I choose to do something a little different.
Okay. And we actually do have a little bit of time in that our next guest is not here, but there's one question I wanted to ask you before we ask our final question. And that's there are new generations that are coming in, right? Like there are a lot more younger Black coaches, younger Latino coaches. There are more than before in terms of college debate, etc.
Yes.
What is the advice that you would give to them about how they should deal with this thing that we do, right? And I'm asking that with full knowledge of everything you know, right? Like, because there are lots of things that go on in college debate with Black people and high school debate, and there are lots of recent controversies in terms of integrity and how to deal, and so coming up now, right? What advice would you give to young Black, brown kids who are making a career out of debate? Not just debating, but young in coaching as well.
Do your research. Know who the people are who are currently involved in the activity that can help you access levels of power. Know who has come before you and give homage to them and many of the things that they have been able to achieve. Realize that you're going to have to work harder to achieve a certain thing than others who may be similarly situated. And you have to be comfortable with that to achieve the same success. Know that racism is indeed a thing. You will see it in the way that colleagues interact with you, interact with your students, particularly with students of color, and knowing how to confront that directly is the best way to have a better space for all involved. is what I would say. But a lot of that is leaning on those who are still in the activity, who have a lot of institutional knowledge that can teach those young folks how to be better. Who do you talk to? What materials or resources can you get? If you don't have funding for your team, what is one way to perhaps navigate that? How have some of us been able to achieve some of the things that we've done? Those are things I would suggest. And I would kind of underscore all of it by saying, we're probably never going to be liked if you're really successful in the activity and Black, because of all the things that I've said before. And I realize that's disturbing for some people, and people like and feel and need to be liked by colleagues. But the better you do, the more hate you will sometimes receive. And if they stop talking about you, then you're not really relevant, to a degree, because you're then not a threat to life as they know it, I guess is what I would say. So while not exactly organized, those are some thoughts kind of off the dome and things that I would tell younger coaches. And the only other thing I would say is make sure you are finding a space outside of the activity to be healthy, both mentally healthy and physically healthy, because the activity can take a toll on you. Before you know it, you're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50, 60, etc. And you have, a medical condition, or, we may be a little overweight, or, something along those lines. So taking care of yourself physically and mentally is incredibly important.
Thank you. We have, of course, the last question that we always ask, and that, well, actually, Zaid, you wanted to ask a question, but Zaid is our community activist who has been working really hard to make people's lives better for close to 40 years. Pretty much any movement that's been in the Northeast, whether it's political prisoners, police violence, he has helped organize. He has been in the process to help organize since the days of anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, conversation on reparations, like all that, right? So, Zaid, I know that you have a question.
Actually, before I ask the question, I want to say this. Now, Jonathan, I've been saying this to you, and I'm just saying this on the air for a minute. One of the vehicles that I work with is the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee in New York City. And of course, Malcolm was a legendary debater, right? And I've been trying to figure out how to really lift up the question of debate in Malcolm's legacy, in terms of moving the work forward in recent times. I want to reach out to both of you to consider participating in a panel in December. December marks the anniversary of Malcolm debating at Oxford back in 1964, when he was on top of the world, when he climbed the mountain, right? To be a part of that. And I want to work that out with the Shabazz Center in New York, where Malcolm, did his great work with the OAAU and was ultimately assassinated, right? So I had to lift that up, because I've been really wanting to bring this together for a minute, and this really just lights a real fire under me to do that. Now, the question has nothing to do with what I just asked. What I'm about to ask. The question is a much lighter question, Brother Aaron. Okay. Right? And this is a hip hop talk show. Right. So we always ask our guests, no matter how often they've been on the show or not, but especially our first time guest, is who is your favorite hip hop artist that you listen to, or who are you particularly listening to right now in the genre? If you are.
I am
I'm sure
indeed.
Jonathan did prep you for that.
Yeah, I am indeed. Did not know this question was coming. But probably it links to a lot of the things that we've said. I don't know if I could give two, but I will say this. I'm a big Tupac fan. Long time ago, I'll say that. I've been listening a lot to Dr. Dre recently. Still Dre was playing in my head a bunch, doing a lot of the things that are going on the last couple of years. in the way I think about that as it relates to me. You know, and getting a little bit older in the activity, how people relate to me, things along that line, but also thinking about the next episode, to be totally honest, and thinking about what's next as I, you know, stare in my rear view of forensics coaching and things like that.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It is truly an honor to have this conversation with you, and I mean that sincerely. I remember having it was after a particular round. I called the next morning and just basically just wanted to talk to you on the phone and be like, look, man, it's just an honor, right? Like every time our schools debate each other, like and when it's important, like in stuff that matters, right? It's just an honor, right? Like it's just an honor, and I would say that you know, I would even say that probably that definitely, right? Some of the best moments, right? Some of the most meaningful moments of my entire debate career, right? And it's true, right? Most meaningful moments of my debate career came through competing, learning, in interaction, right? With either your competitiveness or your generosity, whether it's your excellence, right? Which is beautiful, right? You're like just like art form, like everything. The reason why we do this as coaches, you really embody like a beautiful thing to watch if you love debate is seeing you in action. A beautiful thing is having the honor to compete against you in a round that counts, because it's just so much fun, right? Like it's just everything positive about what we do in the fight, in the struggle, and it's just a beautiful thing, right? Or the generosity, right? Where you literally are teaching people brilliant wisdom things to come against you, right? Like I've said this before publicly, you openly teach people to be your competitors, to go after you in ways that like, and I think that is like that thing about your character too. So very sincerely, you know, honor to have this interview, honor to be your friend, all that.
And what I'd like to add, Brother Aaron, as you leave, you know, one of the things I heard Les Brown say recently, you know, he talked about being 77 years old. And he said that as he began to look behind him, he said the one thing, and as you just said, you start to look in the rearview mirror. I would hope that you would consider, right? Because Jonathan will bear me witness. One of the things I said to Mtume every time I spoke to him, I wanted him to leave empty, right? He recently went home to be with the Lord in December, but I would always say, man, leave empty, man. Don't leave all that wisdom. Don't take all that wisdom with you. Leave it. And so Les Brown said that what he wanted to do for the rest of his life, spend the rest of his life trying to teach what he's learned about public speaking and how do you become great. I would hope that you would consider how do you leave empty and teach other people like Jonathan to be great. Because Jonathan is great, but he can be great just like you.
Yeah. Thank you. No, it's an honor competing against the students of Newark. Some of our best debates of the last several years have occurred against them. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't. But it's really the process that's really, and if you think about it, it's like Magic and Larry, you know, Michael and Kobe. They bring out the best in one another. And I think the students in Newark, Jonathan, the people that have been around him in coaching, hopefully just bring out the best in me. And I do like to work with other people because I think iron sharpens iron. And I find ways to get better, continue to be a student of the game. So I appreciate the opportunity to have these words with you all. I mean, I heard the previous guest, and they're talking about issues that literally impact people's lives, and the ability for me to talk about the game that I'm associated with and some of my life experiences is really a defining moment for me. And thank you so much for the time and the opportunity.
Thank you, man. And you're about to make me cry. So we thank you. I appreciate that. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yep. And that is another segment of All Politics Are Local, America's number one hip-hop streaming show. So I am honored, right? Super honored to have a colleague, a person who is brilliant on Naseed, gifted writer, comic book writer, educator extraordinaire. Our students at Science Park love him, and my boss, right? One of them. And so great to have you on the show to talk about Khemfest, to talk about Black blurreddom, to talk about the thing.
Talk about a Black man teaching science too.
Yes, that science teacher, right? Math is.
Let's build directly on what we just did with Aaron Timmons. Let's build on that.
Yes, educator of science, who is also a science fiction writer, who has his own comic book, and he's also bringing this hoop that, right? And you will tell us about the latest incarnation, and you have set up shop in the Haynes building for Khemfest, and talk to us. Well, first, welcome back on All Politics Are Local. Let's talk about some Black science fiction, Afrofuturism, Khemfest. That is Khemfest.
All right. Peace and peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you for having me, man. I definitely appreciate what you guys are doing with this platform. It is just super phenomenal opportunity to just be out here. I mean, my name is Naseed Gifted. I am a educator, engineer, writer of an Afrofuturism sci-fi series called PB Soldier, and what's that right there? But also, I am the founder of a Black comic and animation film festival called Khemfest. Khemfest is where we celebrate Black animation, gaming, and comic book creators. It's a 3-day festival this year, which is happening September 23rd through the 25th, right in downtown Newark, in the new space that we just curated called The Future is Black Afrofuturism Art and Tech Gallery, which is 12,000 square feet of Black excellence. We are celebrating Afrofuturism in 4 areas, which is Afrofuturism art, Afrofuturism architecture, Afrofuturism fashion, and Afrofuturism technology. So we just have the opportunity to be able to showcase a lot of this Black excellence that's going on, and is right downtown Newark on Broad Street, right inside the Haynes building, 609 Broad Street, where we just had our grand opening yesterday, or ribbon cutting. And it's just been phenomenal to be able to do so many things and be able to showcase some of the greatness that's going on in this local area, but also nationwide as well.
So can you break that down for us, man? Like, you're talking about the Haynes building. Is it and it's a place to showcase, right? Like, what is that space? I walk past through the Haynes building and I'm like, oh man, this is a place for blurs, for Black people who like all this great stuff. Space.
So I mean, first of all, it's just massive, right? So it's 12,000 square feet. So it's 12,000 square feet of nothing but Blackness. You can, I think about Nas, it's ultra Black, blackity black. When you look at it, but we have Afrofuturism art. So we have a number of artists. We have a number of exhibits where we have art, We actually have an exhibit from a number of our science park students who created a Afrofuturism architecture piece. So we are looking at what, you know, the black lens of the future is going to look like, and, you know, not being depicted in all of, and being depicted in all of our greatness, right? So that is what the space kind of speaks to. But we just have so many different elements in there, with the art, with the fashion, with also the architecture and the technology. We have a film festival that's attached to Khemfest, which is Khim Animation Film Festival, where we're showcasing Black animation from across the African diaspora. You know, we have people from Ghana, from Nigeria, from of course across the U.S. And other parts of the world, even down to Taiwan and Singapore and all of those other areas, which are going to be showcasing their films, you know, within our festival as well. And then we have our STEAM lab, which we are building out currently, where young people get the opportunity to do slime making, 3D printing, some robotics demonstrations, learn how to develop their own comic book strips or comic strips. Oh, and I'm sorry. And one of the last elements is we actually have a video game lounge where you can actually beta test video games. And, you know, where we have video game creators are going to be showcasing their works. But we also going to have gaming tournaments and everything, you know, related to technology, all associated with this space. So that's what we pretty much put together, this space. And right now we're doing a Kickstarter to raise funding so we can be able to do a lot more for the community and the young people that's going to be young and, adults that's going to be, using and utilizing the space.
Can you put the Kickstarter in the link and we'll publish it, right? So
definitely.
So that you can do that. And while you're doing that, I just have some more questions, right? Like, so is it? It seems like really cool, right? Like, it seems like it's both artistic and scientific, and it all rolls in, right? Like, you have the science fiction and the science fact, and you have like people who can learn computer programming, people who can learn gaming, and you're having them really all in the same space.
Yes.
So is there why have the tech people and the writers in the same place?
Well, we always thinking about one of my main purposes is to develop the next generation of technology leaders, innovators and creators. So why not we be able to write our own narrative? So we have stories to tell, and we want to be able to tell those stories within, particular mediums. And in that particular media, we're looking at animation and gaming and game design. So with that, we want to be able to cultivate those individuals, because if you watch an animated film, just like if you watch a movie, there is a number or hundreds of job opportunities out there that our Black and brown children do not, haven't been exposed to. But those are some opportunities that some are degree. Require some degree work, but also some of them are technical, where it just requires certain skill sets. But being that they're already passionate about that genre, that they should, be able to qualify for those different opportunities. And because they don't know about them, they don't never apply for them. And that was a part of what we wanted to do with Khemfest, is be able to be that nexus, that bridge, to be able to, expose those different opportunities, because you already we're always on the consumer end. We want to be on the creator and producer end of the spectrum with all of this stuff.
So that is very cool. So doesn't seem like it's just a summer program, or it's not for Khemfest. This is going to be all year round.
Well, that's our intention, but right now we are just kind of building. We wanted to do. We actually just had a meeting today. We're actually going to do an end of the summer STEAM camp that we're working on, and also we're looking to do some year-long programming with Khemfest, because we want to educate individuals on animation and game design. That's pretty much what we're looking to do, and give people platforms to be able to showcase their work. The the one thing with animation, which is a little different from comic book creation, is the entry point is a little more higher because of the price of equipment, the access to resources and everything. So being able to provide those resources and the training for that, and give young people and adults opportunities to be able to build their own, is something that we want to be able to cultivate within our space and be a training grounds for that.
So did you put the link in already?
Yes, I put the link in the chat.
Oh yeah, I got it. So cool. So the goal is to be around. Is there? And okay, this is going to be a stupid question I'm going to have, right? Like, and I know Zaid has some questions too, but the question I'm going to have is, in the space, are y'all going to sell comic books too?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Right, good. All right. I was going to ask because you're talking about
the whole cafe. We're going to have all this merchandise and everything, and the comics is definitely in there. And of course, with Khemfest, we're going to have a number of comic book creators, animation developers, as well as game designers who are going to be showcasing their works, as well as any other Afrofuturism or Afrocentric art and cultural wares that will be a part of the festival.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Like, and I wasn't just talking about Khemfest in terms of the festival, in terms of selling comic books. I was talking about in terms of the space, right?
Oh yeah, yes. We had the comics available, for sale. We're open on Thursday through Saturday, 12 to 7 p.m.
And the reason why I ask, right, like, is because comic book stores have always been community gathering points, right?
Yep.
Like, people go into comic book shops and you browse through the comics, you talk to the people to see what's there, you talk to other kids and other people, and it's always a community bonding.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of, and maybe you can tell me, I don't know of Black-owned comic book shops or Black places of comic books, right?
We do have a few, not in this area, of course. One in Philly, Alchem, who did a nice 5-year run. They're actually looking to close the doors within the next couple of months.
Oh, no.
So we did a 5-year run. And then you have one in California, from what my understanding. And then they had another one in New York. But the comic book shop hasn't been able to sustain itself, over the long term. So we have to be creative and innovative with everything that we do, with regards to distributing our works. So that's why the art and tech gallery becomes even that much more, important and everything, because we'll be selling art, we'll be selling the comics and everything. But also it's going to be a home for where we have PBS Media Studios, so we can build these animation and gaming projects and everything.
So really, what you're looking at, and this is what you're looking to do, right, is redefine the community comic book shop for the future, right?
Yes.
As in, comic book shops shouldn't just be about comic books. They have to be about more, to be able to bring people in for the community, so that it can actually last, so that it could be, because people really aren't buying comic books the way they did, right?
I mean, most of the stuff is digital nowadays. Of course, anyone who's in our age bracket, we would still read the paperbacks or whatever, but most of the stuff is digital. So we have it available digitally as well as in soft cover for that reason. But your hardcore comic book readers are pretty much downloading. They're downloading nowadays, so everything is available through that platform. And what I would love to do is, if you guys can just go to the video, I want to just kind of share the video of what the space actually looks like for everyone who's actually tuning in right now.
All right, cool. And it's I'm going to get ready to share that in just a second. But what is it that we can expect from the video? Like, why did you want to show the video?
Well, I want to show the video because I want people not only to imagine the space, I want them to actually see the space. You know, like some of the artists that we have, like how we took the concept of Afrofuturism and evolved it into something. And then this whole Kickstarter campaign, and when we talk about Afrofuturism, we talk about bringing Wakanda to Newark. We talk about bringing Wakanda to Newark. And because of that, you know, we want to be able to share what that looks like. You know, what does Wakanda in Newark look like? Because we actually have a Wakanda ball attached to this whole thing. So August 20th, we're going to have our first Wakanda ball in Newark, New Jersey, a part of the Bringing Wakanda to Newark movement.
Okay, I'm getting ready to show it now. Oh, wow.
Peace, everybody. My name is Naseed Gifted, founder of Khemfest. We're excited to have our 8th annual Khemfest happening this September 23rd through the 25th in the prestigious Hain & Co. in Newark, New Jersey. Our festival is called Khem, which means black or blackness. The word is derived from ancient Egyptian times, as the area was known as Kemet, which means black land. Stories were written on the walls of Kemet in hieroglyphics thousands of years before modern comics were printed. The original hieroglyphic is a stylized picture of an object representing a word, syllable, and sound. Khemfest is an annual festival in celebration of Black animation, gaming, and comic book creators. The goal of the festival is to use comic books, animation, games, and popular cultural arts to develop youth literacy and expression through STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. We have created this festival that will feature and promote creators of comics, animation, games, and other media with a focus on Black culture, concepts, and interests. Our festival has always been a diverse networking opportunity for professionals and enthusiasts to inspire, cultivate, and honor Black creators and their contributions as it relates to popular arts and media. Our festival highlights other literary genres like speculative fiction, game development, 3D printing, animated films, and all other related media. So why Kickstarter? Kickstarter is going to give us an opportunity to build our Khem Animation Film Festival, our award show, and then, of course, our STEAM lab, which is going to include 3D printing, slime making, and robotics. And then we have our The Future is Black Art and Tech Gallery, where we're going to be building technology, AR and VR games and exhibits to be hosted and be used by all individuals. We're excited about the next couple of months, but we want everyone to be a part of everything that we're looking to do to develop that next generation of technical entrepreneurs. So your support through Kickstarter would definitely be well appreciated, as we have some excellent rewards for you to be a part of this journey with us. We have a founders wall, we have a number of prints and other opportunities for you to get involved. And then we're also looking to do a number of activities throughout the summer in order to engage our young people to be those next generation of techno entrepreneurs. So we thank you. We're looking forward to you being a part of this journey. And once again, take care of yourself. Peace.
Nice.
So I wanted you to see that because what I'm describing is all encompassed in that video. And we're not even done. So every time that we open the doors, we're trying to add another layer to the experience that we're doing. So we just added the technology layer. We just opened the gaming lounge. So every time we're just adding and adding to that space. We have 2 screening walls where we'll be doing film screenings and everything. So it's a phenomenal space that we just kind of cultivated and transformed into something that, speaks to Black excellence.
Excellent. No, love that.
And can I just ask, what's the location of this space again?
This is 609 Broad Street. We're right next to City MD in the Haynes building. If you're inside If you're inside the Haynes building, we're right next to Kite and Key.
Oh man, yo, brother, you are bringing the right thing to our city, man. Like that right there. I just saw just the work that you just displayed in that demonstration right there. That was crazy to me, man. That's everything that I personally have been looking for. Me and my wife was looking at it brother. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank
you for what you're doing, man. We need that, bro. We need that, man. That's inspiration. You know, art. You know, they always say Newark is for artists, right?
Yep.
And man, you're taking it to the roots. You know what I'm saying? Talking about Khemfest. You know what I'm saying? You're taking it to the roots of it, man. So thank you, brother, for what you're doing, man. I love it.
And I want to just to add to what Zaid said, and that you are also an educator, an excellent educator, right? Like, honor to work with you, man. And the kids get a lot from you doing what you do. And so I think that, you know, you're talking about having you had some of the science kids doing the architecture project, right? Like, so I mean, there's just such incredible synergy, because there are not a lot of outlets for different kids to have different ways of being kids in ways that, you know, you want to geek out, you want to talk about science, you want to be able to and you want to, and you know, and I don't think I've ever said this to you, but probably the coolest thing that I think you bring to the table in any educational setting, that you definitely bring to science, and that you bring where you are, is that you make loving science and being nerdy really, really cool.
Yeah, you make it fun and interesting.
No, but not just fun and interesting, right? Not just fun and interesting, because we black men, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be more than just fun. It is difficult to get a lot, like just our last guest talked about in terms of academic debate. It is often difficult to get us to embrace academic things that because it's not necessarily cool, right? Yeah. But you make science fiction, you make science cool, right? The way you go about doing it, the way you present it, right? The way you embody that Black excellence, Black intellectualism, all is good, and it's fun, and it's cool. So I appreciate you on that. I don't think I ever told you that. So, you know.
Well, thank you, man. I definitely appreciate it, man. Because I mean, I get surrounded by excellence, you know, with yourself, Brother Muhammad, you know, like with all of the great things that you guys been doing over the years. And I just been watching, I study, and then when I study, I take a piece from here, I take a piece from there, and then you know, just put my own thing on it. Like I'm what they call a blurb. I got jumped into the blurb gang a long time ago, and what I've learned is to be able to not shy away from it, you know, and understand that I'm, you know, I was born with certain gifts and talents, and I'm going to showcase those. I'm gonna let people know that this is what it is, and it's all right to be like this. I mean, I grew up, you know, I went to George Washington Carver. Like, I was infused in STEM or STEAM for my entire life, which I didn't even know, and it was by osmosis, because I went to George Washington Carver, and then come to find out about his life that he did 1,000 inventions with the peanut. The whole reason that we have gasoline cars is because of George Washington Carver. And the whole fact that he developed the assembly line for Henry Ford and everything else, you know, to be able to do those type of things. I didn't know that through just going and attending 8 years from K to 8th grade at George Washington Carver, then transitioning to Science High, where I was one of 10 individuals who was a part of a robotics team when they first rolled it out, and got an opportunity to go to the White House because we won what we call like the World Championship of robotics, where we won the Chairman's Award. And I worked alongside a Black engineer, which inspired me to want to go into engineering. And I just been on fire ever since then, and just, you know, just found my little niche and just kept going with it. And because of that discipline I got from engineering, to look at stuff and look at problems and be able to go about being a problem solver, that's how I was able to enter into the, you know, the comic book world and be able to solve the whole representation gap that was going on there, and being able to change the paradigm of the word superhero. You know, because when we talk about words and how words have power, when most people say the word superhero, most of the time it's an image that doesn't look like you. And my whole purpose was to be able to change that.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So and thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And we got to have you. We're gonna have you back on again, right? Because we got to talk about. We're gonna get updates. We got to get updates.
Okay. No, definitely. But the one thing I do want to leave with is, I know we're talking about bringing Wakanda to Newark, and we got the Kickstarter going, but we are actually having a Wakanda ball where you will come in your royal attire. You will come dressed in your.
I was going to ask that. What do you wear to Wakanda ball?
Are we wearing all white? Are we doing this? Are we doing this?
Yeah, we going deep in, man. So you gonna come in your kente, you gonna come in your after 5 wear, you gonna come dressed to impress at the Wakanda ball. That's gonna be August 20th in the Future is Black Afrofuturism Art and Tech Gallery. That's where we're gonna have it, man.
Let me say this. August 20th is the anniversary of 1619.
Yeah.
Look how far we've come. That's going to put a smile on the ancestors' face.
Yep.
Wow. It's also my mother's birthday. Shout out to my mom.
Yes, sir. Happy birthday, man. August 20th, ma'am. Happy birthday, Ms. Austin. Absolutely.
Awesome. So, thank you so much. We're gonna ask that last question for you though. Favorite hip hop artist, individual, group, who you're listening to now? Who inspires you in this genre? Could be any of that. You could tie it in.
Man. Well, all right. So who I'm listening to right now? I'm listening to Anderson .Paak for some reason. He's in rotation. He's been putting out some quality music. But I think I did this before, but Talib Kweli. I like Lupe Fiasco. I'm Common. India.Arie. I'm in a whole bunch of different, individual. Oh, and I actually like Thundercat. I like Thundercat too. Thundercat has been doing some phenomenal stuff. Oh, and Flying Lotus is like one of my #1 producers who's putting out some quality music and everything else. If you haven't seen him, I need you to listen to him in concert. He actually, of course, he does the soundtracks for different animation and everything, but the brother is phenomenal with composing music. I mean, he is absolutely phenomenal.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, man. And we're definitely going to have you back many times, and maybe even before the ball, because and secretly, I'm very much a one of those like watching collected comic books when I was a kid. So we want to have you back on just so we can.
Oh yeah, we can definitely chat.
so Todd Burrows is going to be very happy to hear that too. And something tells me, Rhino, you're a little of a black nerd too. You got a little black nerd in you.
Oh yeah, you know that.
All right, so thank you so much, man.
All right, thank you for having me once again.
Thank you, my brother.
All right, peace.
All right, so that's so DJ Rhino. What's going on in terms of DJ Rhino and the state of hip hop? What's going on?
What's going on, y'all? What's going on? Peace. First, I want to say rest in peace to Malik B. Malik B was one of the first original MCs. He was actually Black Thought's partner in the Roots band coming out of Philadelphia, the Roots that I got right here on my shirt. Of course, we know Questlove and Black Thought, but Malik B was one of the main MCs in the group when they first came out with their first album. Well, they had Organics, but their first official album to the public was Do You Want More? But we lost Malik B in 2020 to, we don't even really know. They never released what it was that he died from, but, I kind of attributed to some kind of health issue or whatever, but we lost him in 2020 on this day. So rest in peace to Malik B and big ups to the Roots crew. I want to set it off with that. Also, I don't know if any of y'all have heard of this Hip Hop 50 project that's being put out. Primo, DJ Premier, he set it off. The Hip Hop 50 is basically, it's going to be 10 albums released by 10 different producers, 5 songs each. And the very last album is supposed to be left for the listeners, for the public to decide on and choose and vote on, and you know what's what or whatever. But it's 10 albums by 10 different producers. I don't know all of the producers. I believe RZA's one of them. There's a couple of others, but DJ Premier set it off with his 5 songs, his EP. It has Joey Badass on there. It has Nas on there. It has Slick Rick and Lil Wayne. It has Remy Ma and Rhapsody, which is one of my favorite songs on the entire project, is Remy Ma and Rhapsody, because you never really thought to hear out of the sisters that rock, you never really thought of that combination, Remy Ma and Rhapsody. Rhapsody, you know, everybody looks at her as the conscious one. Everybody looks at Remy as you know, the gritty street and, you know, female MC or whatever. But to see them come together and to hear how they put it together, you know, I enjoyed it. I played it over and over and over again. So it's called Remy Rap, and it's Remy Ma and Rhapsody on that song. I think it's like song number 2 on there.
And what album is this?
This is called it's called Hip Hop 50. This is volume 1, Hip Hop 50 volume 1. So this is DJ Premier's volume. It's going to be nice. It's going to be different producers at every volume, and it's going to be 5 songs each. So
wait, hold on.
50.
Oh, wait, stop. You're messing with me right now. Right? You're messing with me. Hip Hop 50, right? You're messing with me.
Yeah.
Because are you really telling me that hip hop is 50 years old?
Yes. It's about to be 50 years old next year.
So
2023, hip hop will be 50 years old.
You know what that means, right?
What?
If hip hop is 50 years old.
That means my ass is old. That's what it means.
Hip hop is 50 years old. Yo, man, what is that?
Look, let me tell you, I'm 3 years older than hip hop. Okay, hip hop was born in 73. Okay, so yeah, we up there.
Wow,
all of us up there.
Wow. Okay, we old. All right, we have someone who's young who's popped in. Goke. Hey, Goke. Hip hop is 50.
Hey, how y'all doing, man?
Not well, actually. Not well. We just heard that hip hop was 50.
What's going on? It seems like I heard.
So you were never on this earth without hip hop.
You can smell the Bengay.
Yeah, on all of us. On all of us.
Smell the Bengay and the icy hot.
Right. Oh, and maybe there's a thing about only one of us has hair.
The young one on just
right. All of us used to have hair. We all came with a lot of hair. Now, only one of us has it, and hip hop is 50. I'm sorry, DJ Rhino.
1973, I had a red fro.
Wow.
73, I was 3 years old with a big, huge afro, man.
Yeah, and you know,
I used to hate when my moms had to braid it every night.
Meanwhile, in 1973, my dad would say that Goke wasn't even a twinkle in his daddy's eye.
Yeah,
not even a thought.
Right. So, man, you were saying you were talking about hip hop 50.
Oh, by the way, Step 73 was a great summer music. Oh my God, that was great summer music. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
Woo, the music was
I love early 70s. Let me tell you all this. A couple of rows, maybe 3 rows of the stuff is like 70s. Because I love 70s music, especially early 70s, and then even late 70s you get into the dance and the funk. But early 70s, man, I love 70s.
73 was the
greatest. And that's what you're talking about is influential in hip hop, right?
Right. Very influential. You know what I'm saying? That's the stuff we sample from. And even before sampling, we had the bands. We would get live bands to play a James Brown groove or something like that from Funky President or something. Just to get that vibe. But then once the technology came in and we were able to sample the actual records, then that came in and we were just sampling like crazy. And it got to a point where we had to start paying folks, man. We were out here bugging, just sampling all kinds of stuff. We would sample like 7 different records in one song and not give anybody credit.
Oh yeah, and then Bob James started suing folks.
Yo, hey
right?
man, a lot of
Bob James. Everybody, all the rappers were sampling Bob James, the jazz artist, right? They were sampling little things from the jazz artist Bob James. Bob James was like, I ain't black, I ain't having it, right? I have a lot of black musicians all around.
It wasn't just Bob James. It was a lot of the rock artists and stuff like that. Whoever from back.
Whoever we were sampling. No, right.
Even I mean, of course, some of our own too. But I mean, it made sense. I mean, if you're gonna take it, all right, cool, take it. But give us some credit. We didn't, the early days of sampling, nobody was getting credit for that stuff. We were just taking mad stuff and layering it and all of that. Nobody was getting credit for it. But sampling came in, the sampling laws came in, so it got a little bit more organized and modified. But that to me, that's that sound of hip hop. You know what I mean? People nowadays are talking about what's the New York sound. Everybody talking about the New York sound. I made a post earlier today that really, I mean, in the 80s, there was no New York sound because it was just New York that was doing it. It wasn't, people weren't talking about the New York sound until other areas, other regions were, taking over. When West Coast came in and the South came in, that's when it was like, all right, well, what's the New York sound? Because, people from New York are starting to sound like the West. People from New York biting off the South, like, what's the New York sound? And then we need to get back to that. So now everybody's trying to ask the question now, what is the New York sound? So that's the big question. That's the question I'm going to put out there. Maybe we can get back to that next week, but I want to know, anybody that's watching, anybody that's even here in the panel, what's the New York sound of hip hop? Like,
and I want to bring in Goke on that, like, just like the for two things, like,
I think mainly the New York sound to me is that sound that's like a lot of confidence, a lot of cadence, a lot of like swagger. I think when I hear the New York sound, well, right now it's mainly attributed to a lot of drill music. And a lot of like that like deep voice, kind of like a lot of, what do you call it? I forget like a lot of reverb in the voice sound that goes with like a little drill in the background. But I think the heart of like that drill of the New York sound is just confidence in the lyrics and whatever you're saying. The same type of confidence. You see all around New York City. In the streets when you see like men approaching women, or even just like people approaching you for business reasons, like trying to sell you something. There's just a lot of confidence in the air inside of New York that, what I'm doing is good and you're going to like it. And I think that's like the New York sound. Whereas the West Coast has kind of like a more, chill essence to it, kind of like a vibe, you lay back and like relax to it. Whereas the New York music is going to, pump you up, make you feel like, you could do something. But now,
what about the music though? Now the music side, because I hear what you're saying. Like lyrically, I totally agree. Because New York was always confident. Because like I said in the beginning, it was always just New York at the time. So that's where the confidence came from. Because even I heard Lord Jamar say on his show one time that there was a time where we didn't think anybody else was going to gravitate to what we were doing in New York. That hip hop thing. So we thought it was just going to be New York people doing it, and then it branched off. But like, so I hear what you're saying as far as like, so the confidence was always definitely in the lyrics. But now, what about the actual sound? What was the New York? What would you say was the New York sound at the time?
The sound, I think, definitely. If we're talking instruments, is bass. The drums, because that really just keeps the tempo of whatever you're trying to do. I think a lot of New York music is definitely like that bass, that tempo. But then also there's like that crafty with that bass or like tempo. There's always like that hint of like, something spiritual in the background, whether it's like a clarinet, or like saxophones, very like classy in that regard as well. And those are the types of instruments, that add that soul to it. When I hear saxophone, I'm thinking of Harlem, like I'm thinking of like that feel of like what it was to be in even what it's like to be in Harlem. Now and with a hint of like what it used to be, you know, those are those soulful instruments in the background compared with like those electronic bass noises that they have right now, all of those 808s mixed in, add that New York sound to it. And that with like the reverb in the voice, you know, the echo and the deepness, the bass to it, to like kind of, you know, juxtapose that soulfulness in the background. You know, pain in the voice is very common. You know, very like, you know, not afraid to like let your voice crack, you know, because, you know, you're at the end of your breath, but you're still not gonna like, not willing to risk, you know, cutting in or punching in. You're just gonna let it sound how it sounds. And that's how I think like the New York sound is. You hear a lot of like that grogginess in the voice as well. Some people think it's aggressiveness, but to me, I think it's just like, you know, a level of like a lot of people, when you wake up in the morning, you know, how you sound like in the morning, that's how I think it's like the sound for like that grogginess. Not necessarily aggressive, but it's just like, that's just the voice from deep in like the base of the chest. And yeah, I think that's
what you described in some of what you said. Remind me of what I was saying earlier in my post today. Also, you know, because somebody else was asking, you know, what's the New York sound, and I was like, you know, for me, it was that metropolitan nightlife kind of sound, right? But you kind of broke that down, and like when you talk about the saxophones, like for me, it was the saxophones, it was the Rhodes keyboards, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that, along with the dirty breakbeat drums, and it didn't have to be looped drums, but just you could sample just the snares and the kicks, but just those dirty drums from the breakbeats, along with the Rhodes and the saxophones and stuff. It gave it like a New York metropolitan nightlife kind of feel. Like New York was good for having that kind of feel. You know what I mean? Like an AZ, a Nas. You know, I mean, going back to even the early Pioneer days. You know what I mean? It's like it was a certain.
And you could tell too, they know what they're doing, because there's always like that let the beat rock mentality, you know, in that like music, where it's like there's parts where they just might like cut off and just let the beat play, and then they just come back in, you know. And I really feel like that's also part of just like the whole New York flow.
And that's something that's missing. I know Math Hoffa was on his show. He was talking about how that's something that's actually missing in hip hop nowadays, where the beat used to drop out. I think Meth was mentioning it too, where the beat used to drop out and come back in. Like Tribe was famous for doing that in their records. You know, where they'd be rhyming, and all of a sudden you just get those drops in the middle of the song, and then the beat pops back in and stuff like that. You don't get that feel anymore in the songs nowadays. It doesn't have that same kind of rhythm, that same kind of pattern.
Yeah, but it was like a smooth transition between like the lyricism and then the instruments, you know, where they kind of like fed off of each other. Whereas nowadays, kind of like one is always trying to overpower the other, you know, where it's like they're trying to just make a great beat over like lyrics, or like great lyrics over a beat, but there's never really like that synchronization.
Yeah. And now for drill music, for me, I always looked at drill music like the roots of it came from the South, because I always kind of looked at like the drill music came from trap music in a sense, and of course we know trap was kind of born in the South. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I see it. It's almost like drill music is if it's to be looked at as something that's going on here in New York, that's happening here in New York, I still look at it like it's like the roots of it came from a South thing. You know what I'm saying? As far as the sound.
And is that why the whole people are talking about the identity crisis? Because if a lot of people in New York are doing drill, that seems more like a tribute to the South, which also is, it just seems like
we went through that with trap too. When trap came out, there was a lot of people in New York doing the trap sound, and you know, other people were questioning that, like, why are you sounding like ATL or Miami or something like that? You know what I'm saying? And the same thing happened with the West. I mean, I remember when 50 came out. After what, you know, people were like, "Yo, why 50 talking with that West Coast drawl? Like he from out west and he from Queens." You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, there's always they always have like those levels of criticism. I mean, like trap, I definitely think, you know, I don't know where it started, but definitely to me, its roots are definitely Atlanta. But drill, I hear you on Doubt South. I also feel like Chicago has like a very deep roots in drill, but I feel like Chicago drill is also very specific, you know, like that aggressive drill. You know, it doesn't really encompass like all. I mean, you know, there's obviously all drill music in Chicago, but I feel like it's just known for like, you know, you're gonna get the gun bars, you know, you're gonna get the violence, you're gonna get the sneak shade diss and everything like that. Whereas, you know, New York drill, which is why I would also say it has its own unique form of drill, it's more of like, you know, dance music, which is very interesting to me. Like, yes, there's still like the level of like, you know, maybe like violence in the lyrics and everything. But I think it's more like, you know, what is it, like getting sturdy, you know, woo walking, all of that, like just like dancing, very dancing aggressively versus to match the aggressiveness of the lyrics, which is why I really like that. So it's just like moving your body crazily, you know, jumping. Because I tried to dance, I tried to get sturdy a couple times, and I'm just like, yo, this is a whole workout. Like, to be honest, jumping up and down.
You gotta have that energy, yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, and that's the thing. Like what you were just saying, like talking about Chicago and drill, like that's where, like, you know, people don't have to like it, but they have to at least understand that the reason why Chicago and the reason why drill music is what it is. Look at what Chicago's going through. Like the music always reflected what was going on in our society, in our hoods. You know what I'm saying? That's how hip hop came up. You know what I'm saying? The Bronx was the Bronx looked like Vietnam or you know, Afghanistan or something. Like the Bronx looked like a war zone back in the day. You know what I mean? And that's where hip hop came from. So it's like, you know, we hear drill music now. You know, some of us may not agree with that. We may be past that time. You know, we've seen that, done that before. You know what I mean? But you know, but what Chicago's going through right now, it kind of makes sense when you hear drill music. You know what I mean? It's like it makes sense that this is what they're feeling because this is what they're going through. Young kids, this is what they're going through. And this is how they think. You know what I mean? Like I said, it doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean you have to even totally accept where it's coming from because you know at some point kids have to grow and that mentality has to grow. You know what I'm saying? They have to learn their lessons and all of that. You know, but you know,
and that's true. I know we're coming to an end, but DJ Rhino, what more do you want to say to bring us out?
Nah, man. I mean that was it, man. Big ups to Goke. This was a dope conversation, man. I enjoyed speaking to somebody who can go into depth of sound and lyrics and all of that, man. You know,
appreciate it, man.
I really appreciate
the knowledge too. I mean, I definitely love to next time pick your brain about because I know how you said 70s music. When I came in, you were talking about how that influenced a lot of it. Love to hear like the artists and everything more about that because that's definitely interesting to me.
Most definitely, man. Yo, I definitely look forward to having more conversations with you for sure.
Definitely.
Most definitely. But that's it, bro. That's it. Again, you know, the shakeup, I got that on hold till late August, maybe the beginning of September.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. So I'll let y'all know about that. But that's it for me though.
All right. And I think we're coming out to an end of another week. Zaid, do you want to take us out?
It's been another week, another edition of All Politics and Local America's number one hip hop talk and radio show. We will see you next week at the same black space, same black time, and you don't stop.
Hey, take care. Peace.
Peace.